Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much there, Jack61, for your introduction. And welcome, beautiful people. It is great to be here. But before I start, if you are in Australia, in the southern region, it's a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to everyone. And also, it's a happy birthday to one of our Foul Play members, Cherie Lynn Pontillo. And Jack61 recently had his birthday. Is that correct there, Jack61? A big happy birthday to you too.
I did, and I turned, I think I'm holding it 39 now. I think that's a good number. No, yeah, I did have a birthday on the 28th. Thanks, everybody.
Correct. Fantastic. Thank you so much there, Jack61. And welcome, everyone. It's great to be here. And before I start, I'd like to welcome our esteemed panel. Thank you so much for joining us. And first up, we have Jack61. Jack61, welcome. How are you coming along, good sir?
Doing good, and yeah, just hello to everybody in the live chat. Hello to all my fellow panel members. Should be a good one today. Some more really interesting slides coming up for you. So yeah, let's get to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack61. And next we have that cheeky lad, Andy B. Andy B, how are you coming along?
I'm fine, thank you very much, Doc. Hello, everyone in panel and in chat. And it was my dad's 80th today.
Happy birthday to your dad.
Happy birthday to my dad. Yeah, so if I drop out because I've had a long day, don't be surprised, but I shall try and stay till the bitter end. As long as you make it as interesting as normal, Doc, I shall be here. Thank you very much.
I promise to, Andy B. Thank you so much.
Good stuff.
Yep, thank you. Next we have, I don't recall. How are you coming along?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Reading with the Crew.
Thank you. I don't recall. And next we have Sugar. How are you coming along, Susan?
Hey, sweetheart. I'm doing good. Hi, everybody. Happy birthday to all the birthdays, and happy Father's Day in Australia.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Fantastic.
Thanks for being here.
So much. Thank you so much, Susan. And next we have Neverly. Neverly, how are you coming along?
Hello, boss. Doing pretty good over here. It's hot and humid and rainy in Southern California. I welcome it because that's,
yeah,
like a rarity over here. But happy to be here and happy birthday to everybody, whoever is celebrating.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Neverly. And my name is Dr. Silkman. I'm from the Foul Play team, and I live in Adelaide, South Australia. And as you know, we have an international panel here, and it'd be great, guys. There are so many people in chat already. If you could tell us where you're listening from, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much there, guys. All right. Now, Jack61, what we're going to do, guys, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to make a start. We have a lot to cover, a lot of very, very interesting stuff. And again, all of us on the Foul Play team want to thank you guys for your fantastic support. The Reading with a Crew series and also Open Mic have been incredibly popular with you guys. And again, thank you so much for your feedback. And again, I'd like to remind everyone the reason why we're here for to find justice and to find the truth for Teresa Halbach. For those who are new here, she tragically lost her life at a very tender age of 25 years old, very likely on October the 31st, 2005. Both Stephen, Avery, and Brendan Dassey were found guilty on the brutal murder of Teresa Halbach. We're here as a team to find the truth to what actually happened that horrible day. So, guys, we don't fear to go where angels fear to tread. We're a group of researchers here, and we follow the evidence no matter where it goes. And it's very interesting. All of you know that very soon, Convicting a Murderer will be showing. The foul play team, some members of the foul play team were interviewed several years ago to be on the show. So we'll see. We haven't seen it, but there's been a lot of commentary already. So the way I take it is, guys, let's wait and see what Convicting a Murderer discusses. And then, I think then it's fair enough to comment. All right. Jack61, if there's no other comments, can we have the very first slide, please? Okay. So as you guys know, Neville and I put together this new series many, many months ago entitled Reading with the Crew. And essentially what we were doing were reading passages from John Ferak's excellent book, The Wrecking Crew. And if you've been following along, we're on chapter 14. This is actually episode 47. And the chapter that we're on is a very, very important chapter entitled Canine Noses, where we have been looking at the activities of both cadaver dogs and also the scent dogs. But as a result of this chapter and from your excellent questions from the panel and from the chat, we've actually deep dived into many, many different areas of the case, and I'm really, really glad that we have. And as a result of getting together with Duke, we've been able to discover Bucket Man, which was an incredible find by Duke, and it really complemented what we were doing in this particular chapter here. And don't worry, there's going to be plenty of more shockers coming up, I assure you. So again, guys, if you enjoy what we do, please subscribe to the channel, put your DNA on the like button, and share our podcasts. And again, guys, everyone here on the Foul Play team, want to thank every one of you guys for your support and for your great comments. And I noticed that we've increased our subscribers, right, Jack61? So that's been really, really pleasant, and we're heading off in the right direction. Jack61.
Yeah, we're I think we're approaching close to 2,400 now, so it's fantastic.
It is fantastic. And again, guys, we value your comments and your feedback. And I assure you that here on the Foul Play team, we read all your comments and we try and answer your questions as quickly as we can. So if you guys got a question, we have our mods and our super mods. Welcome, guys. They'll be monitoring the questions, and also people on the panel. If you've got a question, put a little Q, ask your question, and we'll try and answer it as quickly as we can. Again, guys, the only thing that we state is please be civil to one another, right? Often family members will come on and come on in chat. Please be respectful. It's not easy for them. Thank you so much, guys. All right, so what are we going to be covering today? There's a couple of very interesting things that we're going to be covering. One of the very first questions we're going to ask is, what did Kim Skolinski actually know that Cherie Culhane didn't on November the 10th? November the 10th is a very, very important day in this investigation. And what we're going to now do, if time permits, we're now going to deep dive into Stephen Avery's burn pit. We're going to have a look at the very first processing that took place at Stephen Avery's burn pit and examine in detail what was found and what wasn't found. Jack61.
Yeah, November 10th is a hugely important day. You know, as we go along, you know, we get all this information. We were fortunate. You know, Dean and Jerry didn't get it this way, and neither did Loy. We've been fortunate. We've been handed a lot of it on a plate. But at the same time, it's kind of bad when you get information this way, because it's really almost information overload, and you don't understand the importance of that piece of information. And specifically talking about the 10th, And what happened on the 10th? Well, the freaking coroner signs off on Teresa Halbach's death certificate, and there's been no DNA results come back from any bones or.
That's correct.
It's a big fucking deal.
That's 100% correct, and you're correct, Jack 61. Now, I know that some of you guys may be frustrated in that we're taking our time here, looking at this particular chapter and the investigation as a whole. And the reason why we're taking our time is exactly what Jack 61 stated: information overload. There's just way too many things occurring all at the same time in multiple locations. What we plan to do, our aim, is to break it down step by step. Now, having said all that, and I'm sure everyone on the panel will agree, please, it's absolutely crucial that you do your own research and that you come to your own conclusion, right, guys? Do not listen to what we say. It's very important. We have all the resources on the Foul Play website through the hard work of a lot of people. Yuriz, Zoe, our mods, our super mods, many people here on the panel have spent a lot of time doing FOIAs, and Jack 61, Sunshine Christina, many researchers have done FOIAs and obtained documents. We've got them all together on the Foul Play library. They're for free. Please download them, read them, use your discretion, of course, and come up with your own research. That's very important. But what we try to do is to present facts. When we are speculating, we'll tell you when we're speculating, right? And it's very interesting that we're doing this particular chapter right before Convicting a Murderer comes out, right? So the timing is impeccable. So guys, hopefully, and people in chat, you'll be able to tell whether the people being interviewed on Convicting a Murderer are telling you the truth or just making up a story, right? So it's been fantastic that we've been able to do both the open mics, right, that Jack 61 and others have put together, and also what we've done here with Reading with the Crew, with the Reading with the Crew series. And that's absolutely going to be awesome, watching Convicting a Murderer and seeing what they say and who says what. All right. Thank you so much, guys. So today we're going to be starting part 24. Jack 61, unless there's any comments, can we have the very first slide, please? All right. Now, there's no doubt about it that November the 10th was a very important day. Now, here's the big question, right? And I asked my fellow panel members and everyone in chat, and this is the question: how did Kim Skolinski know that on November the 10th, Teresa Halbach was deceased, right? There's no question. He had to have had prior knowledge, unless he was absolutely lying. He had to have had prior knowledge that Teresa Halbach was deceased as early as November the 10th. And here's the other question. What did Skolinski know that Cherie Culhane didn't? And as Jack 61 eloquently stated, hey, the DNA results weren't even back yet, right? But as you know, Kim Skolinski had interviewed Brendan Dassey, and we'll talk about that in a moment because that's a very important interview that Kim Skolinski did. Now, we can see here on the image, the infamous image of Bear standing in front of Stephen Avery's burn pit. This is a photograph that was taken on November the 6th by Trooper Reese. And what is very frustrating, and this is fact, that this photograph was used in court to show the people, the officers that were at the burn pit on November the 8th. And the reason why, of course, is that there were no in situ photographs of the burn pit or bones taken on November the 8th. And I think you can agree that we've seen this image in close-up multiple times. You cannot see a pile of bones in the middle of the ash pile. There are no piles of bones, right? So something happened between when this picture was taken to when Sergeant Jason Jost found the very first bone fragment. And as you can see, that box of bones was sifted, allegedly sifted, from the burn pit. That box of bones was given to Dr. Bennett on November the 9th. November the 9th, and he concluded by examining the ilium bone that those cremains were from an adult human female. Okay? And remember, Skolinski interviewed Brendan Dassey on November the 10th. Guys, do we have any questions so far? Jack 61.
It's not really a question; it's a comment, and I'm trying to stay as far in track here of what we're talking about. And I don't know if it's related. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, because it's not explained. And I'm referencing, and actually just listened to it again last night. I need to get this call in the key calls list. Around 10:30 a.m. on the morning of November 7, Search Team A, Mike Bushman, they were all the search teams were given one portable radio to carry with them. He makes a call out on the radio that he needs investigators down at the end of Cuss Road. Those are some items that need to be checked out, or something to that effect. It's a little garbled. He ends that, and then the next transmission, I think, right after that, or very near that, he says, "And you might want to bring a shovel."
Yeah.
What item? Okay. As far as I know, and I did spend a few minutes looking again, what items is he talking about? Because as far as I know, there wasn't shit reported. Nothing out of what he said. So,
correct.
Are the items that he's talking about? What's in that box right there? I don't know. That's speculation. But that's what I believe, that there were cremains and other material, and possibly even how they found something that says, "Hey, this is Teresa." Electronics. I don't know. That's speculation, but it has to be part of the conversation, I think.
Yep. I think, Jack 61, you're spot on there. You're spot on. That the investigators had to have found some form of positive identification that it was Teresa Hallbach. They knew then and then that she was deceased. Neverly, do you have a comment?
I actually found a question in the chat from our
awesome.
friend Pete Moss. He says,
Welcome.
Welcome, Pete Moss. If we are to believe that the bones were planted by Jost, Holy Jost, what do you call him, Dr. Silkman?
The Holy Jost.
Yeah. If we are to believe that the bones were planted by Jost after the discovery of Cuss Road, then how can we explain the human bones allegedly found in the Dassey burn barrels discovered on the 5th?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But there's one problem. There's one immediate problem. The burn barrels were not checked on November the 5th. That's the problem, right? The bones in the under burn barrel, I believe that the Duke is going to do a mini presentation, right, guys, on the sifting of the burn barrels at Jack 61.
Yeah, he said he's got family in this weekend, but he's going to try to get all that together for next week for us.
Yes. Yeah, it's not as simple as we look at it, right? You got to remember that Brutus hit on 2 of the underburn barrels on the night of November the 5th. And he was very agitated, very excited, and he was barking. And he barked at 2 of the burn barrels. Being a cadaver dog, he detects human decomposition, and that could include blood, right? Blood. Because the burn barrels were not searched on the night of November the 5th, we do not know what was present in those 2 particular burn barrels. Yes, after several days and after several sifting and examination attempts, I think there were 3 or 4 human bones were allegedly found in Yunder burn barrel number 2. They were burnt, they were fragmented, and they had cut marks. But Duke believes, and I believe too, that there were some shenanigans going on with the burn barrels, right, guys? It's not as simple as we are led to believe, because there were several burn barrels on the Avery salvage yard. There was also a burn barrel that was hit upon at the where was it?
Deer camp.
A deer camp, right? And all of these burn barrels, they were collected. Some of them went back to the Avery salvage yard. They were recollected. The contents were placed in tarps, and there were sifting events. So to answer your question, on the night of November the 5th, we did not know what was in the Yunder burn barrels, right? Duke is going to attempt to do a presentation on the sifting. So guys, it'll be very interesting to see what he turns out with. I tried looking at the burn barrels, and the burn barrels are very, very complex. But thank you so much for the question. Neville, do you have another comment?
Well, I don't know if this is a good time or if people would be interested, but I was very curious always why the bones in the box that came in the box and left in the box were different colors. So I looked it up, and I mean, yeah, you can research for months on this subject, but should I read it up what I found?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we have the picture with bones out. It says that bone color changes depending upon the, and this is a big word for me, taphonomic agents that affect it. Burning turns bone black, brown, blue, gray, and white as the bone's temperature increases and collagen is lost. It also creates diagnostic fractures that are visible at a gross level. And also says that why do bones turn white? Because we have some white bones here, and then we have some brown and black ones, right?
Correct.
So my understanding is the longer the bone burns, the lighter the color of it.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So it says once the bone's organic material has burned away and the calcium has fused, it turns white. This sequence of color change is always the same, but it's important to bear in mind that bones may also be stained by substances in the burial environment. Okay, so that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah.
So basically, the collagen is lost, and when calcium fuses, that's when they turn lighter and lighter.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Neville. Yeah, so essentially what you see in that box of bones is that the color of the cremains, the bone fragments, are not uniform. They vary widely in color. And Dr. Eisenberg had mentioned that. So whenever you get a bone which is white, it means that the bone is calcined. It means that all the organic material within the bone has evaporated and burnt away. And a white bone, a calcined bone, resembles porcelain, right? Porcelain. It has a whitish appearance. And you can clearly see in that box of bones, there's a distribution of colors, right? So it tends to suggest that not all the bones were exposed to the same degree of temperature, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, correct. Or time.
And/or time, yeah.
Correct, which is extremely interesting. Thank you,
The
Neville.
question is, I have a question, sorry. So remember how you were giving us that excellent presentation on MBAC process?
Yes, correct.
If they can get DNA from a rock that's been sitting in water for 20 years, couldn't they get DNA from a white piece of bone?
There are you wouldn't use MVAC, Neville. You wouldn't use MVAC in this particular case. there are laboratories around the world who specialize in extracting DNA from bones, burnt bones. It's a very, very sensitive procedure. Very few laboratories around the world can do it. It's a specialized procedure. But as you can see, that when you have a bone where all the organic material has evaporated, the chance of extracting any DNA is almost zero because all the cells have been evaporated. Some of those other bones which are not as badly burnt, then the
But
potential
luckily,
of
we have that
extracting
item BZ, right?
that's exactly what I was going to say. When you have an item like item BZ, you don't have to worry about bones. Item BZ, as we'll see in a minute, is actually desiccated muscle tissue, and that should be an excellent source of both genomic DNA and also mitochondrial DNA. But unfortunately, as we all know, what did the state do with those cremains? They gave them away.
Gave him what?
They gave them away.
Well, if they cannot be MVACed, and if there's only a few laboratories that
Can
can
do it.
extract
Correct.
DNA from such
Bone.
calcined bone, then why was the state of Wisconsin in panic to give him away?
Well, I think one of the big issues, and we've discussed it many, many times, is I don't think they were so much concerned about the bones that were found in the burn pit per se. They were terrified about the bones that were found elsewhere, i.e. in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There are definitely bones found there. And also, as Jack 61 pointed out, any bones that were present at Cuss Road. If those bones came back as being Teresa Horbach, then the state has got a big problem, right?
Or if they were just human, that would be a nice start. Like for sure.
Correct. Why would Stephen spread bones, Teresa Horbach's cremains, in multiple locations and at the same time leave incriminating bones in his own burn pit, right? It doesn't make any sense. And there's also the possibility that the hypothesis that cremains were brought from those locations to the burn pit now starts to make sense, right? Because what the state is arguing is that the burn pit is the primary burn site, right? And Ken Kratz did not want to discuss any cremains that were outside the burn pit. He had to accept about the cremains in Yonder Burn Barrel number 2, but all he did was he blamed Stephen for putting them there. All right. Now, Susan, you there?
Yes, Doc.
Would you like to call out who's in chat? How rude of me.
Bet.
How rude of me.
You bet. Iced coffee was the first one here today. Thank you,
Welcome.
Iced coffee. We have Gloria. JD is with us. Clive Coolidge is here. Passive Bear is with us. Colette M, thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Grammy is here. John Wayne. Howdy, Padna. Kelly McAlian is with us. Nance Live 7 is here.
Welcome.
Phaedrex Amarex is with us. Angie Dickinson. Dark Side of the Moon. Master Cedar. Justine J is here. Pete Moss, of course, and Graham Moss. Andy B. Ronald D. Cass is with us.
Welcome.
Let's see, Anthony Hills. Gloria, not sure if I got her earlier. Let's see, Rhonda SD. Hello, Rhonda.
Yeah, we've got quite a few people in chat.
And 4SYM is here with us.
Yep. We got
Travis
Travis.
Williamson. Hey,
Yep,
Travis.
right. Welcome.
AS from Western Wisconsin says they're ashamed of their state. I understand.
Don't be. It's not your fault.
Behind the Magic. Hello, Claire View is with us. Hi, Claire.
Claire, welcome. Welcome, Claire.
Charlotte Dowling is with us. Hello, Charlotte. I think I've covered everyone. If I missed you. Oh,
Fantastic.
Disco Pervert is here as well.
Welcome. Yep,
And
welcome.
of course, our panel is also in the chat. Duke Juke.
Awesome.
Just saw him come in. Hey, Duke.
Welcome, Duke. Fantastic. Yeah, Duke could definitely be interested in this program. That's for sure. All right. Well, look, guys, that's fantastic. And yes, we also hope that Rhonda is feeling a little bit better. Fingers crossed. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? All right. So there's something really weird going on here because Kim Skolinski interviewed Brendan Dassey on November the 10th at Crivets. Neville, do you see the slide, slide A2?
Yes, I do.
Yep. What I want to do, I want to reread this part. This is what Kim Skolinski wrote in his report. This is what he told Brendan Dassey. Now, put yourself in Brendan's position. He's at Crivets. He's 16 years old. His mum's not with him. He has no legal representation. Neville, let's go for it.
All right. Dassey Skolinski and investigator Baldwin left Dassey and went inside the residence to check on the status of the search warrant execution. A couple of minutes later, Special Agent Skolinski returned to Dassey and told him that the investigators believed that on Monday, October 31st, 2005, Stephen killed Hallbach and burned her body in his fire pit. Special Agent Skolinski told Dassey that investigators found pieces of female bone and teeth. Dassey was asked if he helped Stephen burn Hallbach's body, and he said no. Dassey was asked if he saw anything in the fire pit that resembles a human body or human bone, and he said no. Special Agent Skolinski told him that this is not the time to be lying to protect Stephen. Dassey said he did not know anything about Stephen burning Hallbach. The interview was terminated at approximately 12:30 p.m.
All
Then
right.
why in the heck didn't they use this in Brendan's defense? Or even, you know what I mean? Or to determine if he was guilty or not, if he knew anything, if he did anything. How come they couldn't rely on this?
Right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to thank you, Neville. I'm going to ask the panel one by one, and also people in chat. Now, put yourself in Brendan Dassey's position as a 16-year-old kid, and a senior investigator like Skolinski said that to you. What would your reaction be? Write it down, guys, in chat. What would your reaction be? Andy B, what would your reaction be if Skolinski just accused you of being involved in Teresa Hallbach's murder on November the 10th? Andy B, what would have you said?
I would have said no, and I probably would have been nervous and stuttering about my reply.
Okay. Would have you been shocked being accused of murdering Teresa Hallbach?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you, Andy B. What about you? I don't recall. What would have you done?
Probably say, what are you talking about? No, I would be shocked. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Susan, what do you reckon? What would have you done?
Tell the truth. Yeah, it would have been frightening, I think, especially for Brendan. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been shocking. And what did Brendan say? No, I had nothing to do
No,
with it. I had nothing to
didn't
do
know
with it.
anything about it. Yep.
Yep. Interesting. Jack 61, what about yourself? What have you said or done?
Yeah, and I think, just for Brendan, he probably was afraid, because we found out later, of course, it's not in the report, it never would be, but Skolinski was quite angry and treated Brendan quite badly in this particular interview. That came out later in a conversation that he had with his mom. He yelled
Yep.
at him, and I think he even cussed him. I think he even cussed at him, if I'm remembering right, but it's what he told her, and I believe it.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm sure he was scared, probably scared to death.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. Thank you, Jack 61. What about you, Neville? What would have you done or said if you were accused of this?
I'd probably be just like everybody else. I'd be in shock. But honestly, if I were 16, I would be thinking, of course I didn't do it. And I don't know if I would not think about it later on. But I don't believe that I would be scared for myself because I would know that I didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Because, in other words, I wouldn't have enough life experience to know that I could be set up.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. I don't think Brendan, guys, I don't think Brendan had any idea of what Skolinski basically was saying to him. But notice it's all Skolinski almost is deriving as a fact that Teresa Halbach was killed by Stephen Avery. Is that the impression you guys get? That it's a fake,
Absolutely.
incomplete?
Oh,
That,
absolutely.
Yeah. And teeth,
he's
found bone and female bone and teeth.
and teeth. Correct.
That's pretty
Now,
specific.
correct. Now, if you're Brendan Dassey, you must be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I was at the burn pit. I helped my uncle. I never saw Teresa Halbach. Remember the very first thing he said to Detective O'Neill? I went off the bus with my brother. I walked home. I saw nothing. But Brendan Dassey changed his story twice when Skolinski tapped on the window and got Detective O'Neill out and told him about the bus driver. So it goes to show that Brendan Dassey was easily malleable. He changed his story. And now on the 10th, which is a very interesting day, right? On the 10th, you've now got Skolinski saying, hey, don't cover up for your uncle. Your uncle murdered Teresa Halbach. Were you a part of it? Right? And I just find it very interesting, guys, that he picked November the 10th to tell Brendan Dassey this, right? Which is very interesting. Does anyone else have any comments? And do we have any questions in chat? How
would you know that they're going to come back 5 months later?
Oh, correct. But you have to admit, guys, you know how we've been saying, oh, well, Brendan Dassey finally admitted that he was involved. Oh, no, I have an awful feeling they were looking at Brendan Dassey from day one. Because remember, Brendan would have been Stephen's alibi, Neville.
Yeah, Nan's Life asked the question, but I think that Jack already answered. She said, was this all happening at the same time Stephen was taken into custody by Liegert and Asbender?
Jack 61, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, this was the 10th, this interview, DCI Report 33. Stephen was taken into custody at approximately 2 p.m. on the afternoon of November 9.
The 9th,
yeah,
correct.
It was the day before. Yeah, it was the day before. Yeah, that's right.
Correct. Yeah, so Stephen was arrested on a gun charge, felon in possession of a weapon, right?
Yeah.
So things are rapidly going downhill. Jack 61.
Yeah, just a brief comment, and it's about what you guys were just discussing. You think about, if we just think about this time frame, October Well, let's just move forward to November 3rd till today. This day we're talking about, the 10th. They've known for days, at least a week probably, that Brendan has already said that he was with Stephen on the 31st. Why wait 5 months to go after Brendan? I have a lot of speculation about that. I can't prove any of it. I just see end result,
Correct.
which is what we're forced to look that way.
Correct.
But I think that was time to make a few things happen. The contact that Candy had with Fassbender to set all that shit in motion. Whatever and hey, look, I'm speculating about this, but I see end result, and I don't see any other way it could happen. If somebody has another way it could happen, please tell me. But you think about what Kayla said and what she retracted. I think that Candy worked them girls hard in connection and working with Baldwin, which was up Marie's ass. She was up Marie's ass for months, basically coming down to threatening her with a John Doe hearing. It was such bullshit. So there was a lot going on behind the scenes, I guess, is my point. And I think they used that to their own benefit to build this case to go after Brendan. So,
correct.
Anyway.
So my question is this, right? And Neville alluded to it. Why didn't Skolinski arrest Brendan Dassey then and then? Why didn't he arrest?
That's exactly right. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Right? Because when you think about it, Brendan did say, hey, look, I was at the burn pit. I helped my uncle. We collected some items, we put them in the burn pit, and we burnt them. He went home, I went home. And remember that Jody Stokowski phoned Stephen Avery twice, allegedly when all this mayhem and mutilation and burning was taking place, right? So why didn't Skolinski immediately arrest Brendan Dassey under the suspicion that he was a co-conspirator? He never did. Jack 61, you wanna comment on why Skolinski never arrested Brendan Dassey then and there?
Well, Doc, I've thought about it a lot, and I just personally at that point in time, on the 10th, I think they knew some things, but I just don't think that I just don't think they felt like they had enough to make that work. And this is Skolinski basically yelling at Brendan. This is what we think, Stephen. This is what he did. He's basically stating a fact. We know what happened. And I'm sure Brendan in his mind is, again, I think he's probably afraid, just understanding Brendan's personality. I don't know Brendan. But he knew he was there and didn't do shit. He didn't do anything wrong. But he's he's believing this cop, this guy. I'm sure he's got a gun on, and talking to him like a piece of crap.
But here's the question:
the authority.
He had the authority. Yes, correct. Here's the question. I'm gonna go around the panel and also in chat. This is a very important question. Do you believe that Brendan Dassey was convinced by Skolinski that his uncle killed Teresa Hallbach on November the 10th? That Brendan Dassey was now convinced that his uncle, when he wasn't there, when Brendan wasn't there, had killed Teresa Hallbach? NDB, yes or no?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. I don't recall.
Yes.
Susan.
I'm not so sure because Brendan was up in Crivets with his family from the 5th to whenever they went back. But, and Stephen was there and talking about how, he's been set up again. And so he's listening to the family, put their thoughts out there, what they think is going on. So I'm not so sure that he would have, that Skolinski would have convinced him of that.
Okay. Yep. Good point. Jack 61.
I think maybe in that moment, maybe in that, you're a young kid, your mind's racing always a million miles a minute. maybe at that point in time, as Skolinski's basically yelling at him, I think that's a very good possibility. Maybe in Brendan's mind, he's thinking it happened when I wasn't here. I didn't see anything.
Yep. Excellent point. Neville, what do you think? Do you think he got convinced?
I am not so sure. I think that Brendan got extremely confused, like puzzled by it, because he knows that he didn't see anything on that Monday, right? And I think that he believes Stephen a lot because they had a good bond. Would he waver on that and say, well, gee, as you just pointed out, maybe when I wasn't there, I just think that he was very, very confused, but I don't know if he was convinced. And then later on, when during the interview, remember when he was in school, that's much later on, when Barb came in and Brandon said, well, what if Stephen tells him a different story, that we didn't do it?
Yes. Correct. Interesting. Thank you, Neville.
What do you think?
I personally believe that Brendan did think, my uncle killed Teresa Horbach when I wasn't there, right? Because when you think about it, Brendan Dassey listens to authority. It's pretty obvious, right? Brendan changed his story to suit what the bus driver said. What did O'Neill say to Brendan? Hey, there were 15, 16 kids on the bus. They saw Teresa Horbach taking pictures. How come you didn't? And then Brendan Dassey changed his narrative twice, despite the fact that he never, ever saw Teresa Horbach, her RAV4, or Stephen. He thought, okay, if the bus driver saw her, what's it going to hurt if I say that I did? The problem is he now got dragged into the narrative, right? And Blaine said, hey, I just walked home with my brother and I went home. I never saw anything, right? So therefore, if Skolinski's saying, we found teeth, bones, and they belonged to Teresa, then he must be thinking, wait a minute, I was there. We did light a fire. Did Stephen somehow have Teresa Horbach hidden somewhere? Did he really do this? Right? So I personally believe then and then there was an element of doubt that crept into Brendan, Jack 61.
And just to add this in, just because it's Skolinski, I've talked about this before. I've mentioned it a few times during this series. Don't forget about an assistant attorney general calling into MTSO dispatch on the evening of around 7:30, I think, on the evening of the 5th, saying, and he's in a panic. You can tell he is. I've just talked to Special Agent Skolinski. I need Mark Rohr's phone number right now.
Yes.
Of course, they wouldn't give it to him, but they did, do a little phone tag and get them together. I would love to know the contents of that call, and I would love to know what Skolinski told, because there's no report on it, what he told the Sprayberg, an assistant attorney general. And this is on the 5th. So I'm just adding a little bit more complication to an already complicated case.
Correct. And remember, when O'Neill spoke with Brendan, he asked him, how do you think that RAV4 got there? And do you know what he said? He said the police planted it. Now, they right? The police planted it. So O'Neill and Baldwin are thinking, oh yeah, who told you to say that, right? So it's very, very interesting that Brendan initially started thinking, oh my God, my uncle's been set up again. What Brendan didn't realize was that law enforcement were about to drag in Brendan as well. So I think, guys, you will agree that Skolinski knew that Brendan Dassey was obviously with Stephen. They're at the fire pit. They had burnt something. All of a sudden, on November the 8th, they find these bones, the box of bones, and Skolinski's putting 2 and 2 together, right? Now, Jack 61, unless there are any other comments, can we have a look at the next slide? This is also what happened on November the 10th, right? So this is very, very important. So there obviously was a lot of work going on by Cherie Cohane, right? Neville, do you see the slide, A3?
Yes, I do.
Can you read up to the part before conclusion? Just the part
Sure.
up on. Yep, let's go for it.
A keyboard search of the profile from item A6 on November 10, 2005 against the Wisconsin DNA Databank resulted in a match to a DNA profile contained in the convicted offender index. The information regarding the convicted offender sample is as follows. Databank number such and such, offender name, Stephen Allen Avery.
Boom.
Yep.
And
This match should be.
Yep. Yep.
This match should be considered an investigative lead. Confirmation of this DNA match requires the submission of a biological standard from this individual to the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory, Madison.
All right. Now, why is this important? Look at the date. Look at the date, guys. November the 10th. So on November the 10th, right? This is Cohane's DNA report, Exhibit 311. On November the 10th, Cherie Cohane got a result back from item A6. Item A6 is a stain, a blood stain that was derived from the driver's seat of Teresa Horbach's RAV4. When she prepared the genomic DNA, she got a full genomic DNA profile, ran it through the Wisconsin DNA database, and checked the convicted offender index, and out popped Stephen Avery's name, which means that on November the 10th, the State Crime Lab knew that Stephen Avery's blood and hence DNA was in the RAV4 on that date. And notice what Cohane says. Oh, this is an investigative lead. To confirm it, the individual needs to produce a biological standard, which is bizarre because Cherie Cohane was involved in Stephen Avery's exoneration in 2003. Cherie Cohane had item W, which was a buccal swab from Stephen Avery, and Cherie Cohane had his full genomic DNA profile back in 2003. So interesting that when she put item A6 into the database, out pops Stephen's full genomic DNA profile. 100% correct. So here we have the person who presented hair evidence against Stephen in 1985. They got him arrested. Here we have the same laboratory technician in 2003 that did the work on the pubic hair that got him exonerated. And here we've got the same individual who did all the swabbing of the RAV4 and the Pontiac Grand Dam, did all the swabbing, did all the PCR, did all the results. And here is Cherie Cohane writing a report saying, hey, guess what, guys? A6 comes from Stephen Avery. Now this, Neville, you're going to be interested. This is November the 10th, right? The very same day that Michael Claser, the medical examiner, signs Teresa Horbach's death certificate. Neville, do you have a comment?
Yeah, my comment is just dumbfounded. What did they find? How did they identify Teresa?
That's right.
On the 10th in the Manitoba court.
Correct.
What do we not have?
Correct. And listen, one day prior to these results, Stephen Avery gets arrested. And remember, guys, what did Mark Wiegert say to Stephen? What's your DNA doing in her car? Now, how can Mark Wiegert say that prior to Culhane getting the result from the database, was Mark Wiegert lying, or did Mark Wiegert know something that nobody else did? What do you reckon, guys? Anyone care to comment? Jack 61. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Susan.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
Susan.
Susan.
I was just gonna say that's a really good point, Doc, because they said that to him in the interview on the 9th.
In the interview.
It really is an interesting. He could have been, bullshitting, but I don't know. This is gonna make it work. Always pops in my mind. Culhane had control of all the swabs. So
100% correct. So what you've got are all these people that have the ability to become Nostradamus, right? And Mark Wiegert said to Stephen, what is your DNA doing in her car? And what is her blood doing in your trailer? Remember, guys? So Mark Wiegert is saying, hey, your DNA is in her car. Her blood is in your house. And of course, it turned out that all the blood that was in Stephen's house belonged to none other than Stephen himself. So was
and
Mark...
don't forget that. Oh, so sorry.
No, go for it.
And don't forget Mr. Kratz's claim on national TV on Dr. Phil when he got his pie hole shut by Buting, when he claimed that there was DNA on the bed.
Correct.
Stephen's trailer, yeah.
Correct. Jack 61.
And let's not forget that at 7 p.m. on the evening of November 5, Coburn, Lincoln, Remaker went back into Stephen's trailer and collected blood out of his trailer, the laundry room, the bathroom, whatever the hell. They were in there for 2 or 3 hours.
Yes, they were. And Brutus, the cadaver dog, did a hit inside the bathroom laundry area. So these guys are already, these crack detectives are already putting 2 and 2 together, thinking, oh, that must be Teresa Hallbach's blood inside his trailer, inside his bathroom. But what they didn't mention is that, did Brutus hit inside Stephen Avery's master bedroom? Did he hit?
No.
Did Brutus hit?
No.
There was no hit. There was no hit inside Stephen Avery's master bedroom, which they conveniently did not want to talk about. Susan, did you have a comment previously?
No, Doc.
Okay. Now, Susan, do you see slide A3?
I do.
Can you read after conclusion? Take note, guys. This is critical. Let's go for it.
A biological standard from Stephen Allen Avery must be submitted to this laboratory for confirmation of the match to the STR DNA profile obtained from item A6. The DNA profile developed from items A1 and A14 is consistent with originating from the same female individual. Any further interpretations will require the submission of additional biological standards. Evidence disposition, all items will be returned to the submitting agency upon completion of all analysis.
Okay, so what that essentially means is this. Culhane was able to identify Stephen Avery's full genomic DNA profile from item A6. And remember, Stephen never said that he was inside Teresa Hallbach's RAV4. He never even made up a story. He said, I was never in there. And yet, item A6, which is blood on the driver's seat, was found to be his DNA, right? And that's very, very incriminating. How did that blood get there? But Cherie Culhane made a very important point here, guys, and that is, yeah, look, we found female blood belonging to item A1 and A14, but we don't know who that female individual is, right? She never said it belonged to Teresa Hallbach. She had no idea. And she said, hey, we need a biological standard from Stephen Avery, even though she had one, item W, but we need a biological standard from this female individual. And that's why, guys, remember what Wiegert and Fassbender did very early on? They went inside Teresa Halbach's bedroom and started collecting items in the hope of extracting DNA to get a biological standard. So here's the question, and I know this is going to trigger Neville. If the laboratory technician, Cherie Cohen, is saying, we got no idea who item A1 and A14 belongs to, how on earth did Michael Kleiser, the medical examiner, sign Teresa Halbach's death certificate on November the 10th, when clearly I've just shown you Cherie Cohen had no idea who item A1 and A6 belong to? A1 and A14 belong to. Can someone care to answer that question? Jack 61.
Well, I can't really answer it. I just know what the end result is. There's just, unless there's material that we have not been shown, was not shown at trial, there's no way.
Right. So doesn't that tend to suggest that the authorities knew that by November the 10th, Teresa Halbach was deceased? They had proof positive ID, not DNA, not yet, but they had proof positive ID that Teresa Halbach was deceased. Otherwise, legally, you can't sign a death certificate until you prove the person is dead. Correct, guys? Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a legal standpoint, because I don't know Kleiser and how he operates, but from a legal standpoint, to me, they would have to have something. I just don't know what that is.
Right. I mean, how embarrassing would it have been if Teresa Halbach rolls up a couple of days later after November the 10th and says, sorry, guys, I went camping. I didn't tell anybody.
That's right.
Right. You've got to be sure that you sign that a person is dead before you can sign a death certificate. Neville, do you have any comments?
Well, yes. The reason I feel so strongly about them finding some identifiers of Teresa, and I'm not talking about the driver's license. I'm not talking about personal effects like necklace, watch, phone, or nothing like that, and a bunch of bones. That if they did find bones with her phone and her wallet or purse, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, with her driver's license there, that still wouldn't be legally acceptable for somebody to sign a death certificate. Therefore, I think that some of her body parts that are recognizable must have been found. That's just my belief. Who knows what happened, of course.
Yes, I agree. 100% agree. And Neville, and guys, there were two potential sites that they could have got that information from. Cuss Road, the clandestine burial site, and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Now, what is remarkable is that on November the 10th, in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, Brutus gives an alert on a burn pile and is very excited, scratching on a burn pile near concrete slabs, right? So now you have a cadaver dog giving a positive hit. Lord knows what had transpired earlier than November the 10th, right, guys? Because Sergeant Jason Jost was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit on November the 7th with cadaver dogs. So I'm telling you right now, the authorities knew that Teresa Halbach, they found parts of her. They were able to identify her. The medical examiner was able to sign a death certificate. And I think Duke said last week that Teresa Halbach's mother, Karen, said, yes, I was informed that Teresa Halbach was dead. This is before any DNA results come back. Let me just stress that. This is before any DNA results come back to prove what those items in the RAV4 belong to. Neverly.
Travis has a comment. He says, I thought death certificate wasn't signed until December, the day of the preliminary hearing.
No, we actually put up the death certificate. The
Yeah,
date
we
is
did.
November the 10th, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right?
In the Manitowoc Court.
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing. Let's think about this. The state is saying that Teresa Halbach was cremated in Stephen Avery's burn pit. Make no mistake, that's what they went with. Yet, on November the 10th, in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, we have co-lead investigators, Fassbender, Wiegert, we have the Sheriff Pagel, we have Michael Glazer, the medical examiner, and we've got a corrections officer at the Manitowoc County gravel pit on the very same day. Remember, Jack 61, Sheriff Pagel phones in and talks about the blood, the body parts, the bones. Right. Correct, that's Jack right. 61?
That's right, he did.
And I think he made the comment, it all paid off. On November the 10th.
Yeah, kind of giddy.
Yep, giddy laughing.
And relieved.
Yep.
Like, whoo.
Remember what the officer said? Oh, JP, you got your case. You made your case. Yeah, blood on the key, blood in the RAV. And on November the 10th, we have the first DNA result coming back that proved that Stephen's DNA was present in the RAV4. On November the 10th, you've got the signing of Teresa Halbach's death certificate. So
question.
All the events occurred on November the 10th, but they don't have any DNA results proving what item A1 and item A14 came from. Not yet. Neverly.
JD, our friend JD, is asking, what date was Karen informed? I think that Teresa was dead.
I think Duke said November the 10th.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that yet another little thing that to put in the basket that they found her? Maybe the trunk that's missing? 60% of her body that's missing? Is that what I found?
It could well be.
Most of her head?
Yes,
of her
it
head,
could well be.
because we only have 30% to
Correct.
tell the mother.
Correct.
Yeah.
Jack
just
61.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
correct.
Yet, as far as if I'm remembering correctly, yet Fassbender did not collect Teresa's pap smear until the 21st of November. Is that right,
we're going to do it. We're going to do it right now. We're going to do it right now. So, guys, can you see what we're doing here? As part of this presentation is that we're doing it systematically, step by step. We're not making wild accusations or even speculating. We're presenting the results as they got them. But the jury wouldn't have understood what all of this meant, right? They had no idea what all of this meant. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. This is very, very interesting, right? So Cherie Cohen, of course, got the DNA results back from item A1 and item A14. And she got a full genomic DNA profile and it belonged to a female. Now, if you have a look, the sex marker is right down below. It's called amelogenin. And as you can see in the column, there's an X. That means that there are two X's there, XX. All females contain two X chromosomes. These are the sex chromosomes. If it was a male profile, it would have an XY. All males contain an X and a Y chromosome. Now, have a look. When Cohen got the results, item A1 is blood in the rare cargo area. Remember, there was that blood that was on that plastic molding of where, right in the back, where it looked like her head had touched the plastic molding. So they got a sample of blood from that area there, item A1. It was female blood. It belonged to a female. They also got DNA from the wild cherry Pepsi can, likely saliva or touch DNA. It came back with exactly the same profile. So notice, they got blood, they got saliva, two different DNA sources, both came back as exactly the same genomic DNA profile. But they did not know who it came from. You can't stand up in a court and say, I've got this genomic DNA profile, it's Teresa Halbach, when you haven't proved it. Guys, do you agree? You can't say it belongs to somebody unless you have a biological standard. Do you agree, guys?
Agree. Agree.
Agree?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. So here we have unknown item A1, A14. And Cherie Colhane said, hey, we need a biological standard to determine who those samples come from. So Jack 61, unless there are any questions, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So by chance, Tom Fassbender got permission from Karen Halbach, because you need permission from the parents and from the mother to obtain the pap smear slides of Teresa Halbach. Now, Teresa Halbach gave a pap smear sample in 2002. She gave a pap smear sample in 2002. The laboratory, the Bellin Health Laboratory, keep the pap smears for 5 years. Now, before everyone jumps up and down and says, that's bullshit, Dr. Silkman, Rubber Ducky, when I was with Rubber Ducky years ago, we actually rang up the Bellin Hospital. We actually rang them up and just asked general questions. And the laboratory technician said, yes. Back then, we kept the slides for 5 years. That was their policy. All laboratories are different, but that particular hospital kept the pap smears for 5 years. Why do they do that? Is because they can track any changes if there's cervical cancer. They compare one result with a new result, and they've got their old sample. So hence, a pathologist can track if there's any changes. It just so happened that when Fassbender went to the laboratory with the permission, they had the pap smear slides of Teresa Halbach. Now notice, they collected them, Fassbender collected them on November the 21st, right? Which meant that no one on the planet knew what sample A1 and A14 were, right? No one knew. They didn't have a biological standard of Teresa Halbach, right? So what the hell was Skolinski saying to Brendan Dassey, Teresa Halbach, your uncle killed her? They had no idea. They didn't have any DNA results. So the reason why you collect the pap smear and produce genomic DNA from the pap smear slides is so that you can get a DNA standard. Now, think about it. Teresa gave the pap smear. The slides have got Teresa's name and details. Therefore, would you guys agree? There is no dispute that's a pure sample coming from Teresa Halbach. Guys, would you agree?
Yep, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
You can't use a toothbrush. You can't use a hair comb. You can't use any other item to extract DNA and say, yep, that's a pure sample. You can't. You can't use that as a standard. Guys, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yes.
think about that. They went and picked up, collected her worn underwear and 7 pairs of panties, or what do you want to call it, and there were other items too. But there's a chain of custody issue, right?
Correct. 100% correct. Whereas here, Teresa Horbach gave a pap smear sample in 2002. The slides were kept. There's a perfect chain of custody right from handing over the slides. But notice what we don't have are the reports on the slides. Susan, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say, if you had her genomic profile from the pap smear, you could compare her hair from the hairbrush or whatever to that. But yeah, otherwise you can't use the hair because you don't know that that's hers.
100% correct. So basically they know. Now, look, people can believe or disbelieve the pap smear. It's up to you guys, but I trust it. The pap smear would have been kept independently. There were reports given with the pap smear slides. They went from Fassbender, they were given to somebody else, and they were hand delivered to Culhane. Culhane had extracted the DNA and compared it to the items that were found in the RAV4. Jack 61.
Yeah, for me, other than being somewhat jaded against, towards it certain individuals that were in the investigation, certainly not all of them. Though I've seen nothing that tells me that this was not a pure sample from Teresa. Nothing.
Correct. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories,
Sure.
etc., etc. But when you think about it, right, I believe in the Christine Rudy case, they also used her pap smear, or am I thinking about Carmen Bootwell? They also used a pap smear sample as well for identification purposes, right? They normally do that if it's a missing female. If the pap smear is being kept, they can extract pure genomic DNA, right? Now, Culhane had no idea what profile that pap smear was going to give, right? She had no idea beforehand. Neverly, do you have a comment?
Okay. Well, I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy. I just have a very hard time believing anything they produce and anything actually they agree upon in a gentleman's agreement. And I know that I'm not the only one. If you look at the chat, that some people do find it kind of sus. And I'll tell you why I think that way and why I feel comfortable saying that. Because remember what happened with the 6 swabs given to the FBI and how that was handled. So things do happen. And where's the report from the pap smear? Every pap smear, if it's processed, it comes with a paper report, dictated report.
Yeah,
you get it in mail.
There is a 3-page report, but we don't have it.
Yes, we don't. We don't have the report. So basically, I don't know why they didn't include the report. I have a feeling they may have given a reason why she had done a pap smear and wanted to keep that private, right? Because remember, Kratz got very, very upset when they were talking about the intimate sample. He didn't want anyone talking about the intimate sample, right? So, he got really, really upset. So they did a gentleman's agreement. It meant that they didn't have... Sorry, Neverly.
Which is very sus. We know by now that whenever Kratz gets his panties in a bunch, there's something fishy going on.
Correct.
Yeah.
True.
And from Travis. When you're finished, I will read it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, right, if we don't agree on the pap smear, we don't have a case. We don't have a case. So you have to accept that the pap smear is legitimate. Otherwise, none of the DNA results make any sense at all. Jack 61.
Yeah, we can't move forward past even the 21st. We can't move forward past that if you're not going to say this sample was a pure sample from Teresa. We're done.
Correct. If you don't agree it's just like saying, I don't agree on the buccal swab you took of Stephen Avery. I want to do another one, right? Then if you argue that, then what are you going to do? You're going to do what? Another genomic DNA prep from the other pap smear slide and get the same result? if you don't agree on the biological standards, then there's no case. The whole case, everything falls apart because you don't trust anything. Neverly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I could be the one to still kind of ponder on. Well,
That's
I'm
fair enough.
sorry.
That's fair enough.
They've lied so much. They agreed on certain things, just like they did on the disc, on the CD. And when they said, "Oh, here you go, nothing of evidentiary value," you know what I mean? They've done enough shady things that I personally am going to stand by this. And I understand that you can't move on to discuss the case from if you don't believe that the pap smear was the original one, authentic one. I understand that. It's just on the emotional part, how about that? Not the technical, but the emotional, it just makes me feel very, very uncomfortable.
True.
Which is neither
Okay.
here nor there. Just my opinion.
Correct. Do we have any questions?
Now, Travis been posting things in chat. He says that this is a minor point, but illustrative on the different standards of what you can represent or argue in court versus community case solving. I'm looking right at the death certificate, Exhibit 16. It is dated December 5 by Kleeser on December 5, filed on December 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I lost it. I think what you're all referring to is that the certificate has time of that from 1031 to 11:8. So it gets you where you want to be with that argument, but it wasn't prepared on the 8th.
No. In actual fact, Jack61, do you have my slide of the death certificate? Do you have that one?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, let's have a look. See, Kleiser didn't know the actual date of the death. He had no idea when Teresa Horbach actually died, right? But we'll see if we can get the death certificate put up. Was one of the early slides. Do we have any other comments? Neverly, do you have any comments?
Well, something interesting was posted as an example by Kimberly Neal. She says, what if she was pregnant? Perhaps that could lead to motive and alternate murder suspect. Yes, how come we don't have the freaking report?
Correct. There was nothing. We don't have those reports, unfortunately. And again, you can't speculate. You can speculate, but where's it going to get us?
The PAP was from 2002, right?
2002, correct.
So
correct.
True.
Yeah.
Do we have the death certificate, Jack61?
There it is.
We got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to blow up the date where it's got November the 10th?
Yeah. Second.
It's on
Date
the top.
pronounced
Yep.
November 10.
Date pronounced dead. November the 10th, 2005. And that's clear. It doesn't matter when it was filed. It's it's the details that he filled in. That's November the 10th, 2005.
That's her official legal date of death. Yeah.
Death.
That's
correct.
And that's the day he was called out to the quarry, right?
That's the day they took him out there, yes.
The day he was at the quarry. And that's the date that Pagel phones in and says, yeah, they found body parts and a lot more and everything paid off. And that's the day that both Fassbender, Uyghur, the medical examiner, the corrections officer were all in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And that's the date that Brutus does the hit in the Manitowoc County gravel pit at a burned pile next to concrete slabs. So everything happened on November the 10th. November the 10th is the day that Skolinski tells Brendan Dassey, your uncle killed Teresa Horbach. Susan.
Okay, I'm just I'm just wondering what Travis is trying to say here. He said date signed by medical certifier, December 5th.
Let's have a look.
It was signed on December 5th.
Yes.
But yeah, date of death is November 10th.
Yeah.
Clear.
Correct. Correct. You don't just pluck out December. You don't just pluck out November the 10th out of the year.
No,
you don't.
There had to be a reason he put that date is in there, and we can't.
Yeah.
You know, we beat it to death. You know, so many times people say, "Oh, that's just a typo."
No, that ain't a typo.
I don't think so.
That's not a typo.
If it is, it's a whopper if it's a typo.
Yeah. So, Travis, my suggestion is let the lawyers argue it. Get Kleiser on the stand and say, what did you mean by this? Right? So it could have well been, and don't forget, they even did an autopsy. Correct? They do an autopsy as well. Did they say that they, on that death certificate, that they did an autopsy? Check 61. Was autopsy ticked? Where was it? Autopsy performed. Yes. Yes. Now, I don't know how you do an autopsy on bones. Susan.
Travis is saying he doesn't need DNA to declare death, date of death, or even a body to declare date of death.
That's correct. So where did he?
What does he need?
What does he need
to declare her dead?
Hey, where did he pluck November the 10th from? That's the crucial thing.
Not only the November 10th, the date, but then why would he say she died on November 10th? If you do not need DNA, if you do not need the body, what do you need?
No. Well, you need a form of identification. You need a form of identification.
I know, but if you find a wallet next to a burning barrel full of bones, would you assume that that's...
No, you can't make it.
That's what I'm saying. So what are the grounds?
Well, we just gotta. What was the motivation? What's the motivator here for Dr. Clay, or this medical examiner?
What is the criteria?
Yeah, I mean, there had to be something for that date to be put there, and
correct.
I don't know what it is, but other than
correct,
some things had to be done to make sure that certain events didn't happen. I'm speaking directly about the depositions, of course. That's a side note, but still. That was a big part of the beginning of where we're at right now. I mean, back in real time, because the depositions have been going. The last one was on the 26th of October, for Christ's sake.
Yep. And who was going to appear on November the 10th?
Kosarik.
Tom Kosarik was going to appear on November the 10th, right? So, Travis, we can't draw any conclusions of what November the 10th is, the significance of November the 10th. Only Michael Kleiser can explain why he wrote down that date. But we're just presenting what we found. We can't draw any conclusions except looking at all the anecdotal evidence. It tends to suggest that they found Teresa Horba, part of Teresa Horba, that was identifiable as being her. In fact, so much so that they told the mother, "Your daughter's dead."
I'm pretty sure her obituary and her tombstone say October 31st, don't they?
I haven't checked. I haven't checked her gravesite recently, but that's the date that she was reported missing. Correct.
Just for me, my personal, whatever. Looking at it from, I tend to look at this as Big Jeff says, from 50,000 feet, and what does it look like? I just know what the end result looks like, whether it's correct or not, and it looks bad because of exactly what Doc has presented. There's no way they could have known it was Teresa on November the 10th because no test. They didn't have her pap smear yet. It looks terrible. Whether that's true or not, I can't say for sure.
Right. And Yuriz just made the comment, Kleiser was not in the Manitowoc gravel pit. He was on Mitchell's gravel pit on the 10th. Tyson had his directions wrong. Well, that makes it even worse, Yuriz.
Even worse.
That makes it even worse. If he was in the Mikkels, quarry when he when he pronounced Teresa Horbach dead, that's even worse.
What the hell is he doing in Mikkels? What the hell is he doing over there?
And the reason why it's worse is because blood and tissue was found in Mikkels quarry, was hit upon by 3 cadaver dogs, and Shariko Haynes said that the blood and the tissue was non-human in origin. So I'm speechless. If he was in Mikkels, that makes it even worse. What did they find at Mikkels quarry? So, it's pretty obvious whether they got the directions wrong. Mikkels quarry and the Manitowoc gravel pit there are in close proximity to one another. The Mikkels quarry is east, whereas the Manitowoc County gravel pit is south, right? So if they got the directions wrong, that makes it even worse. What the hell did they find at Mikkels quarry that made Kleiser? What's Kleiser doing there for a start? Guys, can anyone answer that one?
I really can't. It makes it so much worse than if he was over in the Redont gravel pit or the Manitowoc County gravel. It's far worse because we got some information on Mikkels quarry, but not much.
No. They found blood and tissue at Mikkels quarry, and it was collected by Erdl. And Shariko Hain said that was non-human in origin. Susan.
Then why wasn't Kleiser called to Stephen's burn pit on the 8th?
Yeah, I do not know.
If you look at the death certificate, what does it say on the very bottom? Location of, can you blow it up a little bit right there? What is it? Location of injury. It says 12932 Avery Road. Isn't that Stephen's address?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But he never set foot in there. So why was it really important for them to have this death certificate issued on this day?
What was the rush?
I don't know.
What was the rush?
Exactly. To be so inaccurate.
Well, if he's in Mikkels quarry, why is he over there and writing location of injury at Avery's?
I got no idea.
I mean,
and there's another
one of those
spot with Avery's. Yes. There's another spot where he put Avery Road.
Correct. Well, remember the way Ken Kratz presented things in court was that he blamed Stephen for everything. What did Judge Angie Sukowitz say? Judge Sukowitz said, okay, so those bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit are Teresa's. How does your client prove it wasn't him that put them there? So if human remains were found at Mikkels quarry, the argument will be used, well, how do you know that your client didn't put them there? So the judge was happy to blame Stephen for everything, including the alleged bones in Yonder Burn Barrel number 2. So if human bones were found at Cuss Road, the argument will be used again. How do you know it wasn't Stephen that did it? So we can argue about the death certificate to the cows come home. We need Michael Kleiser on the stand being questioned. Would you guys agree? Jack 61.
Oh, absolutely. There's too many questions. I mean, for me, I'm certainly not a lawyer.
Hell yes. I want to question him.
There are a lot of questions here now, and now that yours is, corrected us on the location of where he was actually taken to, holy shit. I mean, what the hell is he doing there?
Correct. And again, thank you, Yuriz. Remember, Yuriz did the interactive map where all the items were found. So please go to the Foul Play website and check it out. Again, guys, we can only present what we see. We can't draw a conclusion because we're not Michael Kleiser. He needs to answer Why did you put this? What did you find? What were you doing there? Right? We can only show you what we found. Neville, do you have a comment?
There's a question from Clive Coolidge. He says, Dr. Silkman, can KZ do a new 974.06 on the evidence you found on Teresa's cremation and Manitowoc gravel pit as a newly discovered evidence?
Well, she's actually put that forward. She's actually put that forward in a filing and basically said that she believes that Teresa Halbach was cremated in a burn barrel at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? And we have a cadaver dog hit at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, Brutus, on November the 10th. But we have Sergeant Jason Jost, who was there on November the 7th with a team of 4 cadaver dogs. There were 4 cadaver dog handlers. I don't believe we know half the story. Would you guys agree? I don't believe we know half the story of what they found, right? But November the 10th seems to be a very important day. Susan?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
From the 7th to the 10th.
Correct.
It's quite interesting. But yeah,
Correct.
the 10th, a lot of stuff happened that day.
And what you find really bizarre is really a lack of people around Stephen Avery's burn pit, which is what we're going to discuss in a minute. What we find is a huge number of people off the Avery salvage yard, including cadaver and scent dogs. Now, if what Eurisa said is correct, then that's a head scratcher with what the medical examiner is doing in Mickle's Crossing. What's he doing there? Why isn't he at the Avery salvage yard? It's completely bizarre. Neville, do you have a comment?
I don't, but Travis does. He says, why the rush? Remember when we asked, what's the rush? Why did they make Kleeser sign this? Like a half-assed death certificate. He says, because the preliminary hearing was on December 6th and Kratz wanted the death certificate. Here's the problem. He continues. Here's the problem. The death certificate has no relevance in the criminal case. It's inadmissible. This has been a problem for years. The death certificate was not in evidence in criminal trial, and it didn't testify. Probably meaning by Kleeser.
Correct. Yep, 100% correct. Again, Travis, none of us here have a legal background. You do, and we respect what you say, 100%. We can only present as researchers what we have found, right? So Jack 61, can we look at slide A6? So please keep these questions coming. We love them. So if we have a look at A6, well, Cherie Cohen had extracted genomic DNA from the pap smear slide. That's known as item EF. She got a full, we'll just wait for A6 to come up. She got a full genomic DNA profile from the pap smear, which is exactly what you would expect because the cells will be in perfect condition. They're preserved. And as you can see, the amelogenin marker was X. That's XX, which is from a female. Now, she got these results on December the 5th. December the 5th is when her report is written, and this is Exhibit 312, okay? Now, item EF, which is the pap smear, had a 100% match to item A1 and item A14. So it matched both blood and saliva, which was present in the RAV4. That's excellent evidence that Teresa's blood and saliva were present in the RAV4. The problem for Stephen was that his blood was present in the RAV4, according to Cherie Cohen, as well. Right? Do we have any comments about that? You can't get any more clearer than that. They got a pap smear that produced genomic DNA. They got a DNA standard. They compared that to A1 an A14 and got a 100% match. Guys, any comments? Any questions? Do we have any questions? Susan?
I think that pretty much proves that it was Teresa's
Yeah.
blood in the RAV.
Blood and saliva. Yeah, blood and saliva in the RAV form. Look, my background is in genetics, molecular genetics. I did this type of stuff as part of my PhD. When you get a result like that, that's 100% conclusive. 100% conclusive. You got a DNA standard independently. You compared those to unknown samples, forensic samples in the RAV4, and they gave a 100% match to your standard. That's Teresa Halbach's blood. That's Teresa Halbach's saliva. No question. Now, this is 2005. Today, the FBI demands, I think, 20 loci, not 15. 20. But back then, that was the standard, right? Now, this is going to be very interesting. She also tested item BZ. And oh boy, this is where all the controversy starts. At the same time, now item BZ gave a 7 out of 15 loci match. 7 out of 15. But the amylogenin marker also came up. So item BZ is from a female. 7 out of 15 loci statistically means that 1 in a billion chance that item BZ wasn't from Teresa. Let me repeat that. A 1 in a billion chance that item BZ was not from Teresa Halbach. So statistically, item BZ very, very likely came from Teresa Halbach. And that's where all the controversy starts. Why 7 out of 15? Because item BZ, as you'll see, was charred. It was burnt. If you expose tissue to fire, you damage the cells, you damage the DNA. When you do a genomic DNA prep, it's not going to be very, very good. The template DNA is severely damaged. When you amplify it up, some loci will not come up or come up very, very poorly. So, what is frustrating is that today, with the technology that we have available, it's very likely you can get all loci coming up because you have new advanced techniques, right? That you can extract DNA using new PCR primers. You're likely going to get a 20 out of 20 match. It meant that in 2005, statistically, 7 people on the planet had the same profile as item BZ. 7. And one of them was missing in Wisconsin. There you go. That's the statistics, right? So guys, do we have any questions?
Doc, Travis is saying that a coroner was called out on the 8th. However, none of his impacts where you're going with Jost. None of this impacts. What coroner was called out on the 8th?
It wasn't Deborah Kakach.
No.
It wasn't Deborah Kakach. No, I think that wasn't the coroner Jack 61 from Calumet. And I don't believe the coroner went to the Avery salvage yard.
I know that there was a Shetter called and asked who was the on-call coroner. I don't remember what day. I'd have to go back and look at the date. And then there was another call from this on-call coroner saying he would be on duty the following day if he needed, if Shetter needed him. But I don't recall a coroner being called out on the 8th.
Okay.
He's saying Kleiser was out there.
Okay. So what we'll do, thank you, Travis. What we'll do, we'll check in the login, log out sheets to see who got, but was Kleiser at the Manitowoc? Where actually was he? Was he at the gravel pit? Was he at the burn pit, Stephen Avery's burn pit? Guys, has anyone ever heard of a coroner being at Stephen Avery's burn pit?
No.
They
No.
didn't even
No.
they didn't even call a forensic anthropologist at the burn pit.
No. Erdl took
It's
control.
not in reports.
No, I haven't seen it.
I don't recall it in
haven't seen it.
trial. Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. And remember, when Deborah Kakach phoned in, the sheriff told her, if you step foot on the property, you're going to get arrested. So
Well,
it wasn't Deborah Kakach. Sorry,
no,
Neville.
I think that the whole point is that they didn't need a coroner on the Avery salvage yard because they knew nothing was happening there. So they called Kleiser, the medical examiner, in place of Deborah,
Correct.
of the coroner
Correct.
over there. But even he didn't go to the salvage yard.
Not as far as I'm aware, and you'll understand why. When we go through Sturdivant's report, you'll understand what, and he actually gives several excuses of why no one was called, right? And if you look at the testimony of Sturdivant, he says, yeah, I'll take the blame for everything. Remember Jack 61? Yeah, no photos were taken, no forensic anthropologist, no coroner. I take the blame for all of that. Jack 61.
Yep. Yeah, he fell on his sword completely at trial.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Yep. But Travis, what we'll do, I promise, I'm going to look at the login, logout sheets to see if a coroner was called and where Michael Kleiser was. And if Michael Kleiser was in Mickle's Quarry, that deepens the mystery, right, guys? It doesn't make it better, it makes it worse. Right? Because tissue and blood was found at Mickle's Quarry, hit upon by 3 cadaver dogs. It was dug out by Erdl, and Cherie Cohane said, not human in origin, and never gave a reason why she concluded that. All right. So, guys, clearly by December the 5th, they had forensic DNA proof that Teresa Horbach's blood and saliva were present in the RAV4, right? Absolute proof. They tested item BZ. Remember, no bones were tested, no bones, only tissue, and they got a 7 out of 15 loci match that matched the pap smear of Teresa Horbach. So it's a 1 in a billion chance that it's not Teresa Horbach. Plus, they examined the bones, and a forensic anthropologist said they're from an adult human female. And Teresa Horbach has never been seen anywhere, including Canada. Nowhere. Right? No matter how you want to argue it, she hasn't been seen. Right? Anywhere. So it's anecdotal proof that she's deceased. All right. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide? This is where the fun and games start. But again, thank you so much, guys, for your questions. Fantastic. Do we have any comments on the panel? Any comments so far? Andy B, are you still there?
I am, Doc. Carry on.
Carry on. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cherie, are you there?
I am.
Okay, good. Any comments so far?
I just think it keeps showing more and more of the shenanigans.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? All right.
Again, I'm
sorry,
Doc. I just have a brief one. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a reasonable guy from Big Jeff and Jack Law Firm, and I just try to look at this, and maybe it's the wrong way. I don't know. But looking at it, we have to look at oftentimes end result because we don't have the lead up of what was really going on. We just see the end result, and that can be in many things, including what we just talked about at length here, the death certificate. I have questions whether that's right or wrong, because it doesn't look right. Legally, I don't know what that would mean, in the court of law. I just know what it looks like. Was it weird?
Correct.
Yeah, it's weird as shit. And now yours has made this comment that Glazer ends up over in Mickles Quarry, and I'm going to throw something up on the screen here in a minute as we're talking, just to give everybody a direction to look at the overall area. So that's all I'm going to say for now. We can talk more later.
Okay. Now, this is where the fun and games start, right? Let me go through this. So what we have here on the left-hand side, top left-hand side, is the infamous burn pit, Stephen Avery's burn pit. Now, this photograph was taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th. You can look as much as you want, but I can't see any bones in the grass. I can't see a pile of bones in the ash. I've looked, everyone has looked. You cannot see a pile of cremains in the ash, and they were described as a pile of bones. Remember that Jost found the very first human bone fragment 8 feet south of the burn pit, 8 feet south. When Sturdivant, and we'll go through it, when Sturdivant saw the bone, he looked up at the burn pit and he said that he was able to see cremains in the ash, a pile of cremains in the ash. Furthermore, he said he was able to see bone fragments entwined in the steel tire wires, and we'll discuss that as well. This photograph was shown in court because they had no photographs or video of the burn pit on November the 8th. There are none. So they had to use photos from November the 6th to show people who were at the burn pit. Now, I don't want to be insensitive, but if this is true, if Stephen and Brendan Dassey cremated Teresa Horbach, then her cremains are right in front of Bear. Guys, would you agree? If Stephen and Brendan cremated Teresa Horbach in that burn pit, then right there in front of Bear, no dispute, are Teresa's cremains. Jack 61.
Absolutely, without doubt. This is the 6th. She would have been there for, well, at least
From
a couple.
Yep.
Well, even if they said the fire happened on the night of the 31st, it would have taken hours and hours and hours and a lot of fuel. That's number one. But yeah, she would have been right there if their story's true.
Correct.
For a week. Should have been there for a week.
From October the 31st to when they discovered the bones, right, which was on November the 8th. But on November the 6th, we just happened to have pictures by Trooper Reese, and that means that Teresa's cremains are right there in front of Bear. And we've absolutely proven that Bear was not vicious. We've got video proof, we've got photographic proof, and even Trooper Reese never mentioned an aggressive bear. Now, there's one huge problem. Bear happens to be a German Shepherd, and German Shepherds happen to be one of the dogs that have an incredible sense of smell. But even worse, see the picture down below with Julie Kramer and Brutus? Brutus is a trained cadaver dog, Brutus was there on November the 5th, the night of November the 5th. They came out of the trailer and were heading to the burn pit. They only got as far as the propane tank and they heard a dog barking, and Julie Kramer clipped or put a leash on Bear, on Brutus, and Brutus headed towards the Yunda burn barrels. Brutus bypassed the burn pit. Now, wait a minute. Brutus is a trained cadaver dog. Now, I've done a lot of research on cadaver dogs. They have the ability to detect scent up to now wait for it, up to 20 kilometers away. Up to 20 kilometers away. Furthermore, they can detect human decomposition of someone underwater. But you're going to love this one. A trained cadaver dog can detect human decomposition of someone buried up to 15 feet underground. What Kratz is saying to you is that Brutus had no interest in the burn pit because of Bear. Now, wait a minute. A cadaver dog is trained to detect human decomposition. Does anyone here on the panel and in chat seriously believe that Brutus, who's a trained cadaver dog, just simply bypassed the burn pit? And that is the highest concentration of human decomposition that you're going to get from Teresa Horbach. And I mean no disrespect. Jack 61.
You know, again, I'm just a regular person and I drag this in specifically because I'm not in the field of this, but I've seen numerous actual documentaries shot by police of officers and cadaver dogs going and finding these pits or these burn piles or whatever where people have been burned alive or burned up, and the dogs go immediately. They hit on it. And not only that, they all talk about the horrific fucking smell. Pardon my French.
Correct.
In every one of them that I've seen. And that didn't happen here at all.
Correct. And two officers were right next to the propane tank, right in front of the burn pit because they videotaped it. And remember, Bear could not give a damn. Bear was chilled, tail down, very quiet. Now, wait a minute. The state is saying that Teresa Horbach's remains are in that burn pit. How can a German Shepherd be totally chill? And furthermore, how come those two officers and Trooper Reese and Bucket Man and Jost and Koning and Winterlink, who were at the burn pit feeding the dog, allegedly feeding the dog, not one of them reported bone fragments? Not one of them reported any foul odor or smell. Yet Travis Growell, who was in the Redonce pit quarry, a long distance away, said that he smelt a foul odor on October the 31st. Robert Fabian was right between the house and the garage with the burn pit behind him. He never reported any foul odor coming literally feet from him. So my conclusion is, and I don't know whether you agree or not, Teresa Horbach could not have been cremated at the burn pit. Otherwise, there would have been absolute evidence of it from October the 31st. There was none. Guys, would you agree? Am I speculating here? Or does the anecdotal evidence support it through eyewitness, nose witness, and cadaver dog evidence? The dogs were not interested in the burn pit. And yet, here's the irony. Why would Brutus go to two burn barrels and not head straight towards the burn pit? It made no sense. The Brutus didn't even, Julie Kramer never said, my dog was persistent in wanting to go to the burn pit. He kept on going there. Nothing of that is written anywhere. Now, I agree with your Riz. This is not an in situ picture as in 1 inch away from the ash. But God damn it, Sturdivant said that from 8 feet away, he saw bones in the ash and he was able to see bones entwined in wire from where he was standing. Susan, do you have any comments about that 8 foot south of the burn pit? Susan?
Yeah, he said they were obvious bones from
They were
out there
obvious.
that he could see.
They were obvious, and
I agree with yours that like you can't really judge from this photo. It's too far away. I mean, there's spots of white in there, even in the wires that could possibly be bone. I don't know. I don't see a little pile of bones like you see in the box, but it's just hard to judge from this photo
I
from where it's taken.
I agree that
To be conclusive. You know what I mean?
Maybe I should say there's not obvious pile of bones there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, to make matters worse, sorry, Andy B.
Yeah, sorry, Doc. I was going to say, like, looking at the size of the burn area, it being about 4 feet by 4 feet, where it's really blackened, I would still expect to see a full skeleton there. To be honest
correct.
with you.
Correct.
It's no way is that a large enough fire. Thank you.
Correct.
And long enough in duration.
Correct. Now, fire experts like Dahan said, hey, if you're going to convert a human body to bone fragments, to the degree of thermal destruction that you see, you need about 6 hours. And you need a hell of a lot of fuel. A lot of fuel. There's no evidence of that. Brendan Dassey said he went home at about 10 o'clock. Stephen Avery said he was in bed and even said the programs that he was watching. Jody Stokowski phoned him at 9-ish something, 8:57, spoke to him for 15 minutes straight. Oh, wait a minute, he's meant to be tending a fire. And furthermore, there was a Scott Tadich, Bob Yunder, there were others that came back from trick and treat. Nobody mentioned any type of foul odor. Jack 61.
Just to comment, about this particular photo, which I do get it, it's pretty far away. However, there's another photo that Reese took, and he's standing almost in the burn pile. Wouldn't he have walked by?
He was next to the seat.
Yeah, wouldn't he have walked by what Jost allegedly,
yes, he would have.
So yes. I'm not saying that, that Reese would have known, but wouldn't he have maybe? I don't know. This is speculatory. I'm throwing it out there.
There were no observations. There was nothing written by Trooper Reese, who was literally right next to the burn pit.
That's right.
Because you can actually see his shadow. You can actually see his shadow. He never mentioned, oh, yeah, look, I smelled something really weird. Oh, look, I noted some bone fragments. Yeah, sure. He's not an investigator, but he's got eyes. He's got a nose.
Well, that's his job.
Yeah, there's no reported anything nefarious. Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean he's part of the accident scene reconstruction unit, which there was, I think approximately 8 to 10 of them total that got called in on the evening of the 5th. I don't remember. I don't know who called them in, but they did. So his job was to photograph, and that's what he did. He took a lot, except for the 8th and 9th. But again, if a body had been burned in there, and just from everything that I've learned, again, I'm not an expert, he would have smelled something. I think he would have saw something, but I think for sure he would have noticed an odor.
Correct.
I'd just like to say that I don't believe for one. I don't believe for 1 second she was burnt there, and I think the bones were put there, probably the night of the 7th. But my only point was that going off of this photo, you can't make conclusions.
Oh, look, I agree. There's nothing obvious there, but Trooper Reese, as Jack 61 pointed out, was right next to the burn pit, because you can actually see his shadow as he takes pictures of the burn pit, other pictures. He was right there. He was very, very close. And nothing obvious was spotted. And Neverly.
If Joe said that there was an obvious bone, first of all, 8 feet away, that's kind of not very close. It wasn't like in front of his nose type of thing that he spotted this obvious bone, because we are talking about fragments.
But Neverly,
right?
there's one big problem. It's likely that Brutus walked straight past it. Do you guys agree? Because Brutus
Oh yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Brutus bypassed the burn pit and went for the under burn barrels. He would have gone straight past the bone fragment.
And we have Jost saying, oh, there's an obvious bone. Did he call Trooper Reese or whomever to take a picture of it? No, because we don't have any pictures in situ, right?
That's correct. And
if it was that obvious, Trooper Reese would have taken a picture.
Well, correct. But not only that, the crime lab had Zhang, who's a photographer, and no one took any pictures of any bones in situ. But you've got to listen to what Sturdivant actually says. It's going to blow your mind. Jack 61.
Just to add in, and I'll throw it on the screen this is photos from roll 2 of Reese's and Judge's photos that were turned in. This is another photo, and you can see he's virtually standing in the pit. He's right there.
Correct.
And now he doesn't smell anything. He doesn't see anything.
But not only that. Not only that. Sorry, Susan. Not only that. Look where Bear is.
Mm-hmm.
So much for a large, aggressive Alsatian that was charging and prevented officers from going next to the burn pit. Jack 61.
He's up there sitting and saying, I don't give a shit what you do.
Correct.
I think it's also very suspect when Jost wrote in his report about feeding Bear, that he said something like, that burn pit, we should check that out at some point, or something like that.
Correct. And that's really unbelievable, because that meant that on November the 7th, Jost, Koenig, and Winterlink were at the burn pit, allegedly feeding Bear. And not one of them saw any bone fragments, and not anyone reported any smell. Nothing.
And Jost didn't even find it important enough to do his job of writing up a report of the significant. This is like a super significant moment in this investigation to write a report about that. And if you recall, when we got a bunch of pictures years ago, there were pictures of all kinds of things, including dog poop, right? So they took a picture of that, but they didn't take a picture of this bone, which was obvious bone, which was next to the burn pit. Come on.
Correct. All right. Do we
either they're inept or lying or both?
Oh, well, there's something bizarre going on. That is for sure. And remember, also, there were other dogs that went through the area, right? Not one of them made a beeline towards the burn pit. That's a real worry. Something weird is going on here. So, if we have a look at this slide here, what the state is saying is that on November the 8th, the bones that you see in the box, they were sifted from the burn pit, right? That box of bones were handed over to Dr. Bennett, who observed them on the 9th and concluded by looking at an ilium bone that the cremains were from an adult human female. But this is where it gets very interesting. And that is, do you see the picture down below? That's item BZ. Now, I thought item BZ was that large bone where the arrowhead is pointing at. Maybe Jack 61 can highlight that. I thought that was item BZ. Oh no, that's not item BZ. All of those contents that you see on that piece of paper, all of them, that's item BZ. They were all in that brown paper bag. Now, what's interesting, and Duke did 2, I think, Reddit posts on item BZ and sifting and the TARP. You got to check it out, okay? And hopefully that Duke will be able to come on the podcast and present his findings again. We'll cover some of them, but it'd be really great to see Duke present it, right? Now, item BZ, that wasn't discovered on November the 8th. Item BZ was discovered on November the 10th. November the 10th. And see that box of bones up above? Do you see any tissue or any bone fragment that resembles item BZ? And the answer is, what is it, guys?
No.
A resounding no. I've looked. I've blown that the photo up of that box, and no, at all.
A resounding. Yep.
We can't see everything because that damn bag's sitting on top, but
correct. But
no.
what we'll see is the report of Dr. Bennett later on, and he never mentions muscle tissue at all, right? So we've got this bizarre situation whereby the state is saying that both the box of bones and item BZ came from the burn pit. Now, here's the immediate problem. Do you see right next to, on the right-hand side, that oval-shaped structure? We'll talk about this. If Jack 61 can blow it up, we'll talk about this in a moment. That large oval-shaped structure right next to the bone, that's muscle. That's muscle tissue. Now, guys, would you all agree that muscle tissue is an example of human decomposition? Would you guys agree that's a perfect example of human decomposition?
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think muscle of that size is something that a cadaver dog would detect from a kilometer away?
Well, I think it would. I mean, unless it was wrapped in something, I think it would have gave off a very distinct odor of decay to a cadaver dog. That's just me.
Correct.
And bear.
And bear. Now, the fact that Brutus missed potentially desiccated muscle tissue of that size is, you cannot believe it, right? That's a huge, huge red flag right there. So what is interesting here is that item BZ, the contents of item BZ, wasn't found at the same time that those bones were sifted on November the 8th. They were discovered on November the 10th, right? And we'll talk about how they were discovered. And I believe that item BZ is given item number 7926. And that's exactly what Duke spoke about in his Reddit post. And we'll talk about it more in this presentation. All right. So the state are saying that, hey, both the box of bones and item BZ were present in that burn pit. Guys, do we have any comments?
I'd like to read what Travis is saying in here.
Yes.
He says, I think you all have got this nailed. I disagree that you can conclude anything from the photo, but you have it with dogs, probably. Lieutenant Kelly Sipple, page 157 of CASO, carefully documents that Jost at 1340 came to her to report there may be bones in the burn pit and bear preventing it. She says she can see 2 bones, nose honeycomb, her family-owned butcher shop. Sipple's a he. Yeah. His family owned a butcher shop and saw burnt bones. 2 DCI were there. So where was Jost right before 1340 on the 8th? Jost was was watching the propane tank while Minion went on break, is where Jost was. He was at the burn pit.
Correct.
By himself. I think there's the same assumption that Jost was unsupervised at the burn pit prior to 1340. So this makes perfect sense for the theory that Jost could have planted, on that he did, but could have, and would have gone to the lieutenant after he planted them.
Oh, correct. Correct. I agree.
You nailed it.
I agree.
Yep.
But what we have beautifully shown as a team is that Jost had the ability to do it, right? And Bear was not aggressive. And that's why we spent a long time looking at Bear, because if the argument was Bear was aggressive, it'll be very hard for Jason Jost to drop cremains in the burn pit. Guys, would you agree? Because we've all seen images, and I think Jack 61 put up a video of an aggressive dog, and oh my God, an aggressive dog you don't want to muck around with. You won't get within feet of an aggressive dog. For Jost or some other officer to be a bone planter, it meant that Bear didn't give a damn. Bear had no issue. And Sergeant Jason Jost told everyone, because he wrote a report, he had to write a report, one day prior, on the 7th, he was there with 2 other officers feeding Bear. And we saw the dog pellets on the ground. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, that is within reach of Bear. Now, what is interesting is that Koenig happens to be a dog handler. And are you trying to tell me that no one, including Kucharski, who was a dog handler, and there were 19 dog handlers on November the 6th, not one of them thought, let's move Bear? Hey, Carla's here, Barb's here, move the dog, please. We want to search the burn pit. So something weird is going on. And it was Sergeant Jason Jost that said, here's the first bone fragment. I think we better check the burn pit. Sturdivant's there, Mignon is there, Strauss is there, and all of a sudden the burn pit now comes into play. That's very interesting. Susan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think when Minion came back from her break, Jost was there by himself. And then, he spots a bone, whatever. And then he goes up to the command post and gets Sturdivant and the others. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Travis asked a very interesting question. Well, Sergeant Jason Jost was part of Search Team A. Search Team A was at Cuss Road on November the 7th, where we believe, if you look at the disturbed earth search warrant, they found bones. And Fallon and Kratz and even Fassbender talk about bones. Remember, additional bones. That's November the 7th, one day prior to the bones being found at the burn pit. And Sergeant Jason Jost was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit with 4 cadaver dogs one day prior. Jack 61. Sorry, Susan.
I just want to say it's also very interesting. All this work that Jost had been doing. I mean, he's on pretty important places, right? He's doing all these searches. Yet they use him to relieve Mignon for her lunch. I mean, why would Jost be the one to relieve her?
But not only that, why would Jost be told to feed the dogs?
Right, that too.
That makes no sense. They're looking for a missing person.
They've got 100. They've got 100 people on that damn property.
Correct.
And Jost is the one.
And Jost.
Holy Jost, I'll say.
Correct. Jack 61.
Yeah, just a little bit more anecdotal, just to add to things we already know. But I'm going to put it in context with what you're talking about, and talking about Cuss Road, because I think a lot of us believe that something fucked up happened there. And I base this on, and I talked about it earlier, Bushman's call on the portable radio. I think it's at 10:32. I could play it. He says at the end of Cuss Road, found some items down here, need to send an investigator. Then there's a short break, and you might want to bring a shovel. What item
Do you have
was
that
it?
call? Do you have that
Well,
call?
I can get it in just a very short amount of time. Absolutely.
Are you able to play it? Because
Yeah.
that fits in perfectly. Because, I mean, Travis is correct. If you're going to accuse someone, they have to have access to the forensic evidence, correct?
Yep.
Jost just happened to be part of a team in which just about every member found important forensic evidence, right? Siders, who's part of Search Team A, found the burnt electronics on November the 7th in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, right? And there are even photographs showing a guy standing with a pole next to the burn barrel. They were taking pictures of to do the measurements, right? So Bushman finds the clandestine burial site. Sergeant Seglob, Tom Sawinski calls him the night before and talks about seeing two people pushing a RAV4. And Sergeant Jason Jost is in Redonce gravel pit with cadaver dogs. And then he's in the Manitowoc County gravel pit with 4 cadaver dogs. And then he's on a search team looking for a car, some type of car that was dumped. So Sergeant Jason Jost is everywhere. Sergeant Jason Jost allegedly feeds bear on November the 7th. He's at the burn pit. And then he's at the burn pit again on November the 8th. And he's the very first one that spots a bone that's got a red flag next to it. And you think to yourself, who put the red flag there? Who put the red flag there? Right? Jack 61.
Yeah, I've got the call pulled up. I can play whenever you're ready.
Yeah, we have to mute.
You have to mute and unmute YouTube to hear the call if you're
Beautiful.
in Discord. Yep, here
Let's
we go.
go for it.
It's not very long.
752 to 496. Rod, we're almost at the end of Cliff Road. Should be a squad down there. I don't know who's sitting in it, but bring an investigator down here. We got some items that should be cleared. Copied.
I'm going to pause it right here. He said, we got some items that need to be cleared. I don't know what those items are. I've never seen a report. I will continue.
Yep.
26, you may want a shovel. 26, you may want a shovel. 10-4. We copied. We'll make arrangements here. Therefore, it's just an item that should be checked a little longer.
Dispatch 450.
DCI 511 command post. Unit calling command post. DCI 511, we're going to need some more flags out here at the first quadrant on Avery in the corner there.
Yeah, I think that's it. It is. And I said,
Thank you very much.
yeah, I said 10:32. It was actually 10:33. So.
Yep. Correct.
Close
Correct.
enough.
Correct. So, guys, you can see that we're building up a picture, right? We're building up a picture, and we're only using their words, their material. And Passive Bear made an excellent point. And that is, it took 7 minutes literally to remove Bear on November the 9th, right? Now, if Bear was such an issue, there were family members that could have removed him. There were 19 dog handlers that could have removed him. And yet Bucket Man was able to get within feet of Bear, right? So as you can see, what the state are saying, and Sturdivant makes the same point, what the state are saying is complete garbage. They're saying, please don't look here. Don't ask any hard questions. Why? On November the 5th, 6th, 7th, and half of November the 8th, these crack investigators, not one of them thought, shit, there's a burn pit outside next to Stephen Avery's trailer and garage. We better check that. Oh, there's an aggressive dog? No hassles. Let's call a vet. Let's call a family member, remove the dog. Because Kaczarski said on November the 6th, right guys, me and Remika wanted to check the burn pit. Remember? We couldn't do it. I pulled my gun on Bear. And yet, on November the 6th, we have a video with two officers standing in the same position that Remika and Kaczarski would have been, right next to the propane tank. That's where Julie Kramer was with Brutus. And Bear just couldn't give a damn. Bear is just standing in the background, not charging anyone. Jack 61.
Well, again, we talked about this. I don't think it would be unusual for Bear to have barked at anyone that was new that he didn't know, but that's different than being aggressive. Barking is, the dog is unsure, doesn't know. That doesn't mean that dog is an aggressive dog. It's
correct.
It's an identifier. This is his, area, and you're encroaching on. So
Correct.
And the second thing, and again, it's another antidotal to what you were talking about earlier with Sipple, and Susan was talking about Sipple and Holy Jost. This phone call where Sipple's trying to get a hold of him, and I don't remember if it was I think it was the 9th or the 10th. It was after the fact. He needed this report for it was actually for Sturdivant, but and then they talked for a minute. He says, "Well, I'll just stop by up there." Which I guess he did. Again, it's anecdotal.
Yeah, but the scary thing is, Jack 61, and I don't know whether people in chat understood it. Jost was going to write no report.
That's right.
He never was going to write a report.
Nothing.
And do you have that phone call of Jost when he's talking to the officer saying, "Oh, do you have the log sheet to write this report?" Because that is so telling what Jason Jost is so casual. Think about it. Jason Jost did the most important discovery of the entire investigation, apart from finding the RAV4. The finding of those bone fragments, which led the crime scene detectives to sift the burn pit, is the most significant finding ever. And Jason Jost is so casual, as in, "Oh, no, I just pointed them in that direction."
He was talking to his boss, the Deputy Inspector Shetter. He didn't know 3 days later that Jost had done this. He's like, "Oh."
Yes. And guess, Travis will like this, guess who helped in the sifting, Travis? The Holy Jost. The Holy Jost helped in the sifting. So he had his hands literally on the cremains, likely again. Right, and Jost wasn't even going to write a report. He was going to do a coal burn, right? And to make matters worse, guys, was Sergeant Jason Jost the bone finder ever called up to trial as a witness?
No.
No. He did not testify.
No.
He
did not.
He didn't report on his activities later that day over in the Redon and the Manitowoc County gravel pit either. No report.
Correct. There's no report of what he did in Redonce or the Manitowoc County gravel pit with cadaver dogs. So there's something not right here, guys. There's something not right. All right, Jack 61. Can we play that call? Do you have that call?
Oh, the Sipple call? Sipple and Yost call?
Yeah, can we do that call?
Absolutely. Give me just 1 minute here.
Beautiful. So what we'll do, we'll listen to the call. I want to do a couple of more slides because what Sturdivant says in his report is crucial. But let's have a listen to what Sergeant Jason Jost says, because that's a ripper. Do we have any comments so far? Do we have any questions? Jack 61.
Doing well.
All going good? Excellent.
I'm looking for
I'll just read what Nan's Life said. She said Sturdivant even testified while he was at the burn pit, the dog was removed. And he didn't even notice the dog being removed.
That is unbelievable. Correct. Because I asked him, wait a minute, how did you get close to the burn pit? And he said, I think Bear was removed by the time we did the sifting. Wait a minute, who removed Bear? Because Bear was removed 1 day later on November the 9th. We've got the login sheets of the 2 vets that removed Bear in 7 minutes. And Bear was definitely on the 7th.
Yeah, from the command post, they have to get down there to get him and get back to the command post. That all took 7 minutes.
But you know what Duke reckons? Duke reckons that Bear was removed on November the 8th and taken elsewhere and probably left at the command post, because remember, Barb Yonder went back on I think it was the 8th. She fed the dogs on the 6th and then back on the 8th.
Right.
I think that's correct. She came back and fed them again, and it's in the report. So wait a minute. Where did she feed Bear? And where did they find Bear on November the 9th to remove him? Because it makes it a farce that all of a sudden Sturdivant goes, oh yeah, I think they removed Bear before we sifted. You think, wait a minute, you guys waited 3 days and then all of a sudden it took somebody to remove Bear and he now all of a sudden wasn't aggressive anymore? Jack 61.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I've got this pulled up here, and I just want to make note so everybody understands. This call is at 9:22 p.m. If you look 2 calls above, there's another call between Shetter and Jost, and this is where Shetter finds out that 3 days prior that Jost had found this bone and made the report. He didn't know. 3 days.
Let's go for it.
All right. This is now the call that I'm going to play here is between Jost and Sipple. So, all right, unless you want me to play. If you want me to play the other call, I can.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Unless you go. If you want to play the other call, I can.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, it's gonna start. You gotta mute Discord and unmute YouTube.
Hello, Greg speaking.
Yeah, it's Jason.
Yeah.
What number is Kelly at, the lieutenant there?
Todd, I think it's still out there. I don't know what that command post number is.
Because he wanted to talk to me, I guess, about some of that stuff that I found.
What stuff? Oh, in the fire pit?
Yep.
I thought DI agent or... you're the one that found it?
Well, I directed their attention to it originally, and he wanted to know what time, some times for me, I guess.
Oh, did Todd answer the radio?
I didn't try him at all, so I don't know if Todd's with him or what.
Yeah, he's out there.
I mean, if they're out in the field, I can try and get a hold of them tonight when I come in, or I guess he wanted to talk to me to try and narrow down some times.
Yeah, try Todd on the radio.
Okay.
He's right there by the command post, and then from there, if that not, I'm sure Kelly will be there all night because Brett was there last night. He did night shift duty last night. So I would say that...
Kelly's the guy with the mustache.
Yeah. Mustache, a little bigger guy, a little pudgier.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll stop in there and I'm sure he'll be there tonight too. But Todd's out there right now.
I'll see if he give me a call. All right.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Bye.
He didn't know. 3 days later, he's finding out. Well, I just directed their attention. Well, that's actually finding it.
Well,
That stuff. He says that stuff I found.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you look. I love the behavior panel to have a look at this, right? Because they're really good at picking stuff up. Let's get this in perspective. He just found, if this is correct, the missing person that hundreds of people were looking for and never found. Hundreds. Yet the friends of Teresa looking everywhere. They never found any evidence of Teresa Halbach anywhere. And here is Sergeant Jason Jost not giving a fuck. Oh, I just directed them to it.
Wasn't even gonna run a report.
Are you kidding?
He didn't want to admit that he first saw them there.
Correct.
I just directed them.
He found the cremains of Teresa Halbach.
That's stuff.
And he referred to it as that stuff. Right? Of all the people that were on the property and found nothing of Teresa Halbach, he found the first bone fragment. And you could tell he wants to distance himself as best as he can. You want me to write a report? What are you talking about? I've never, guys, maybe I'm overreacting, but you could tell Jason Jost, he wanted nothing to do with those findings.
Well, keep in mind, again, this is on the 11th, so here we are 3 days later. We know that after the 8th and the key and fob were found, basically that was later that evening, they didn't really do anything on, actually they were basically, I think, told to get off the property. And certainly to not report anything, because you can see their reports end on the 8th. Done.
Right. Yes, correct. But look at this. Look at this. We have an MTSO officer finds the key.
That's right.
We've got an MTSO officer, I think, that found the burnt electronics. We have an MTSO officer who was at Cuss Road, the clandestine burial site.
That was
and now we have an
Sider's finding the electronics, right?
Electronics, correct. The electronics. And now we have an MTSO officer finding the cremains. Is anybody a little bit suspicious?
What did they need queso for?
You can't write it in a script, but you could tell that Jost is very uneasy. How can Jost be uneasy and not write a report when he's meant to be the hero? Right. He solved the case. He cracked the case. Guys, I found the cremains of Teresa Halbach. And
I was just going to say that.
I found the stuff. I directed them to it. No, Jason, you're the one that put the hands on the cremains. You helped in the sifting. Okay. Jack 61.
Oh, I was just going to say, now I can play this other call if you want, or if you want to move on to more slides. It's up to you. Up to you, Doc.
What's that call? What's that call about?
This call here is where Jost actually talks to Sipple, and they talk about it. And then finally, at the end of the call, they basically, why don't you just stop by up here? And I guess Jason agrees to do that. That's basically what this call is. But I think it was, they were getting their story together, because here we are. This is the 11th. Yes. We're 3 days after the fact. So,
correct.
I think you should play this call, Jack.
Let's do it.
All right, guys, mute up on Discord and unmute YouTube. Here we go.
Jason, Sipple needs to talk to you about the other day.
What's that?
Sipple needs to talk to you. He's right here.
I was going to step up there unless, well, that's fine. Put him on the phone.
No.
you notice what he said, and he's kind of saying it kind of under the mumbly. He needs to talk to you about the other day. It was a big deal. Come on, don't be shy about it. I'll back it up, and then I'll just let it play.
Sipple needs to talk to you about the other day.
What's that?
Sipple needs to talk to you. He's right here.
I was going to step up there unless, well, that's fine. Put him on the phone.
No, that's fine. He said he'll stop there if you want. You want to talk to him? Yeah. And tell Church 61 sitting up here because 45 was having problems, so Charlie brought that back.
Okay, I'll let him know.
You might have to take a different car or bring a different one up here, switch it, whatever you got to do. If you want to come up, that's fine. Here.
How's it going? Hey, good. Yourself?
Not too bad.
Yeah, I heard Mr. Sergeant Orth told me he wanted to talk to me about some times.
Yeah, we just need to clarify, because I walked out of there before you did.
Mm-hmm.
And did you help him excavate at all?
Yes.
Okay. I'll need you to do up a report on that. Because the arson investigator wants a report from everybody who basically touched upon it, more or less. So, from the time that me and you walked in, and you pointed out that you saw that other piece, and then you pointed out that piece to me of the vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
And then we stepped back. Those two DPI agents came in, the female and the male.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know their names. I know the male is Tom Sturdivant. I don't know the female's name.
Well, the female really didn't have much to do with it. Tom stayed there.
Okay.
At one point I left and he stayed there because I needed to, use the bathroom and everything else.
Okay.
So he stayed there the whole time. Then I came back with the crime lab.
Okay.
And once all their units got there, then we started sifting through it.
All right. Yeah, I've been basically a nice report from you to solidify that. Because he wants to know who was all in there, basically, and the times that they were in there. So just put something together on paper and attach it to your incident report, and we'll file it that way then.
Would you happen to have the log from when that septic tank was pumped? I don't remember which one of your officers was there.
Oh, that was the Brilliant officer.
Was that Brilliant? Okay.
Yeah. Got anyone?
Because otherwise I'll stop up there and I just want to look at a couple times on there because I had relieved her for a short time. Then when she came back, that's when I decided to come and talk to you about that.
Oh, okay.
Then then the two of us came back, and then that's kind of where it progressed from there.
Yeah.
So.
All right, why don't you stop out then?
I'll do that.
I'll dig that log out, and I'll have it ready for you then.
Sounds good, Phil.
All right, take care.
Thanks, I'll take it.
There we go.
Oh boy, for a start, that's called collusion. Let's make sure we include these things in the report. That's not how it works, right? But you could tell that Jost had a care factor of 0, right? He got the spotlight put on him, and you could tell he did not want to be associated with that finding, and he had to admit that he was actually part of the sifting process. Susan.
Yeah, I think he had a serious care factor. I think he did not want to be associated. He cared not to be associated.
100% correct. And he was the one that found the very first bone fragment. And what is interesting is that Travis makes the point. There was a red flag in the ground, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but who was it? Didn't Bushman request for more red flags?
I'm not sure which officer that was.
Somebody requested for more red flags.
I'd have to.
All right.
I'd have to look at the badge number list. I don't know that.
Okay.
Just in this call previously, I think it's interesting where Joe says, I had to use the bathroom and everything like that.
Yep.
He came back with the crime lab. That's an hour and a half later.
Oh, 1.5 hours later, correct.
Yeah.
100% correct.
That was a long shit he had to take.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Huge.
He had to, he had to get
Well,
rid of all the bone fragments from his fingers.
And the crime lab, yeah, if I'm remembering what Duke was talking about, the crime lab wasn't actually called until 3 p.m.
Now, isn't that interesting?
It is.
Isn't that interesting?
And they were on the property.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. I think Erdl was looking at burn barrels, sifting burn barrels, and he got called away later. They wanted his sifting equipment. All right. Now, what we'll do a couple of more slides. This is crucial. Now, this is a Special Agent Tom Sturdivant, right? Now, he was there on November the 8th. He was involved in the very first processing of the burn pit, right? So he writes up a report, and this is crucial. Pay close attention to what he says in the report, right? Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So he writes up a report, and we've got a copy of this report in our library. Go check it out. Thanks to your Riz and I think Rookie, who got these DCI reports. And you notice the date. It's November the 8th. And look at the agents that he puts down, both himself and Deborah Strauss. Jack 61, you want to make any comments on who Deborah Strauss is?
Well, she's the one that called on the later evening of November 4th, volunteering her services because she had been investigated Stephen Avery before and she didn't really like him.
Right. And what was Deborah Strauss involved in?
White collar crime.
Yep. And was she involved in the depositions in any way?
She sure was. She gave, her and Lehman gave the first 2 depositions actually in early May of 2006. So basically, 5 months later? I guess almost 6 months later.
Okay. So,
and
sorry.
She was the investigator investigating law enforcement on Stephen Avery's wrongful conviction, not investigating Stephen Avery.
Correct.
So
let's think about this. Deb Strauss was interviewing the law enforcement officers and what they did to Stephen in the 1985 case of the vicious assault of Penny Bernstein. Later, when Teresa Horbach goes missing, there's a phone call of Deborah Strauss saying, "Can I help the investigators? Because I don't like Stephen Avery very much." Lo and behold, on November the 8th, who's at the burn pit? Deborah Strauss. Now, can you make this up? Yes or no? Is anyone freaked out by this suddenly? Jack 61.
Well, yeah, she really shouldn't be involved, but she was involved up to her neck. I mean, if you actually go through and read all the reports, she's kind of under the radar all the time, though. And I think this is probably one of only maybe 2 recordings that we have of Deb Strauss. I'm trying to get another one. I've been trying. It's actually over a year old now. I've got a request in for an interview that her and Dettering did on Jody Stokowski at the Manitowoc County Jail on the 11th. I've been waiting for this for a year and still don't have it.
Right. Now, would you consider Deborah Strauss being on the property a conflict of interest?
A huge conflict of interest.
And yet,
absolutely.
And yet, she's at the burn pit. Oh no.
Well, she basically told them.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Everly.
By making that phone call and volunteering to help out because she's not a fan of Stephen Avery, she basically is telling them, "I'm on your side, guys." You know what I mean? That was the translation of that.
Yeah, and I want to know who assigned her. All these other officers were assigned. Fassbender, Sturdivant, Skolinski, Thelen. There's so many others that they were told to go.
She assigned herself.
She just gave it to herself. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck, man? Is that how you do business in DCI?
You notice how Jost said that, oh yeah, that female didn't really have anything to do with it. He didn't name her either. To Sipple.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. All right, Jack 61. We'll do a couple of more slides, then we'll finish the podcast. But this is what Sergeant Jason Jost wrote in his report. Now, it's a long report, so let's break it up. Neville, do you see the first 2 paragraphs?
I do.
Yep, let's go for it. So listen carefully what Sturdivant writes. Let's go for it.
On Tuesday, November 8, 2005, at approximately 1:30 p.m., while at Avery Auto Salvage, located at 12930 Avery Road, Two Rivers, Special Agent Thomas Sturdivant, along with Special Agent Pete Stellan and Special Agent Deborah Strauss, were requested to examine various locations of interest. In other words, earthen sites, ash piles, vehicles, items of interest, etc. These locations had been identified by search teams, in other words, state troopers, during a systematic search. It was necessary to determine if the locations or items had any evidentiary value.
Okay.
Eventually,
Question number one. Question number one. Who were the state troopers? And who told them to go search all these locations? Anyone got an answer?
I'm afraid I don't.
Rigor, I don't know.
But they're not state troopers.
They're not state troopers. He says state troopers.
Oh, state trooper. Oh, well, it said, for example, state troopers were the ones that. Oh, but who directed them?
Yeah. Anyone got any idea? I got no idea. They were told to go look at all these sites. Wait a minute. Who told the state troopers this? It's another mystery.
I think the state troopers were the ones that found these various sites that they were then asked to go check out.
Does that include Trooper Reese?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's go for it, Neville.
Eventually, Special Agent Sturdivant, along with Special Agent Deborah Strauss, examined an item that Deputy Jason Jost, Manitoba County Sheriff's Department, had marked with a red flag. Deputy Jost was standing near the item, approximately 1 inch in length, and suggested that it might be bone material. Investigator Joanne Mignon, who was monitoring the emptying of the septic system for the property, had also looked at the item. The item was located behind, south, Stephen Avery's detached, single-story, faded, light blue and red 2-car garage, and approximately 8 feet south from the raised dirt pile, consisting of rock and sand. A burn pit was at the end of the gravel, and Special Agent Sturdivant noticed what appeared to be other charred bones.
Right. So, isn't that interesting, Jack 61?
Just thinking back to, maybe somebody can help me, to Officer Minion's report, which was very detailed and concise. Did she ever say she saw anything like that? I don't recall that.
No, she did not.
Either.
No, she did not say anything about bones.
1 inch in length? Yeah. You gotta have a very trained eye, because when you look at that picture that we agreed that you cannot conclusively say if there were bones there or not, there are other material. There's papers and rocks and all kinds of debris.
More pebbles.
How do you pinpoint pebbles? That was the word I was looking for. How do you pinpoint and be sure that that's a bone? Maybe it was a twig. I guess they were trained in that. That's I'm being sincere over here. I'm not being sarcastic.
Correct.
And there's grass, and this is where people go around. The dog went around there, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
In a week of her alleged burning in the burn pit, which was on the 31st, according to the state, how many people have walked by? They drove the golf cart in there as well.
Yep. And
And
don't
there
forget,
just happened to be 1-inch burn fragments there.
correct. But what Sturdivant is saying is that both himself, Deborah Strauss, Sergeant Jason Jost, and Anne Mignon all saw this bone fragment because there was a red flag there. Jack 61.
Just
Well,
a comment about Sturdivant, and everybody keep this in mind. If you look at his experience and basically his background, he's an arson investigator. He's in that department with the DCI, but he also had experience prior to joining the DCI. He's not a newbie. So wouldn't his first thing when he walks up and sees these items, wouldn't his first thing, I mean, just considering his experience, we got to get this documented now before they start poking around? And he didn't do that at all. I mean, according to his report, nothing. I just question
correct.
it.
Who's writing this report?
Sturdivant.
This is Sturdivant's report.
Okay.
This is Sturdivant's report, right? This is such a crucial report because he documents what happened at the burn pit. All right. So he's able to see what appeared to be charred bones, right? So from 8 feet, he was able to see the charred bones, right? Okay, let's continue. Susan, do you see the next 2 paragraphs? Would you like to read them out, please?
Sure, Doc. Sturdivant had previously worked in the Arson Bureau and had some experience with charred remains to include charred bone. Sturdivant recognized the item to be what he believed to be bone matter. A short distance north toward the rear of the garage, from this item was a pile of charred debris. Sturdivant observed additional suspected charred bone material within and around the debris pile. Some bone material was intertwined within what was believed to be the remnants of steel-belted tire wire. Also observed by Sturdivant was what was suspected to be skull bone.
Skull bone.
A large, intimidating, barking and charging German Shepherd dog stood atop the dirt pile. The dog was on a long leash and could reach from the north edge of the dirt pile to the south edge of the burn pit. The dog house was also on top of the pile, and the leash appeared to be secured to it. The dog was positioned such that the dog prevented people from getting near the dirt pile.
Now, here's the interesting thing. It meant that because of the large aggressive dog, bear, that Sturdivant was able to observe, now wait for it, skull bone fragments,
Right.
a pile of bones, and bone fragments intertwined in tire wire from his position. Correct? I'm not making that up because he wrote it in his report.
Well, that's his report. So who helped him, Cal bear down so he could get over there, right? And
Nobody.
Yeah, right.
Nobody. Because he said the dog was positioned such that the dog prevented people from getting near the dirt pile. So that meant that from his point of view, Sturdivant was able to observe skull bone fragments and bone fragments intertwined in tire wire.
Eagle eye.
Yep. Do you guys believe him?
Hell no.
Sorry, I don't.
He's bullshitting. And he's also bullshitting about bear. We have proven that statement is demonstratively false. Has to be demonstratively false. We've got video evidence, we've got film, we've got photographs, and we've got testimony even from Bobby Dassey, who said in court that bear was calm.
And
Susan.
Mignon talked about him while she was out there. Just said there was a German Shepherd there. Made no other comments about him. She was there all morning.
And not only that, the dog had trouble passing stool, remember? And
Yeah,
he observed that he was having
constipated.
trouble. Yep, correct. No wonder he was agitated. Jack 61.
And one final time again, I've said it a million times, not one radio or dispatch call to somebody, come get this dog. He's going to bite somebody. He's too aggressive. We can't get anywhere around back here. Not one.
Right. And remember what Jason Jost said one day prior? He had to have 2 fellow officers to, quote, help him while he put dog food on the ground. Yet there was an entire white bucket of dog food right next to the kennel, water, and there was food in the kennel of Bear. That sounds like a poor excuse to me. Jack 61.
Well, it doesn't add up at all. I'm sure they were like, you're a good boy. Come here, good boy. I just don't see it. Again, for somebody new walking up, yeah, Bear probably barked. That's normal for not every dog, but most dogs. So
Didn't we just hear Sturdivant testify on the stand that he thought Bear was gone when he got there?
No, before they did the sifting. There's testimony saying that he thought Bear was removed before they did the sifting, right?
Okay.
We actually read that out in an earlier podcast. So it's completely bizarre, right? So all of a sudden, the aggressive Bear is suddenly gone. Just gone. All right. Now, I don't recall. Do you see the next 2 paragraphs?
Okay, does it start with
the dirt pile?
The dirt pile. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Can you read the next 2?
Sure. The dirt pile was located directly behind the garage, south side, which is to the east of Stevens' red trailer. The elevated dirt pile, 1 foot by 2 foot H, was approximately 30. Oh, that's the height. 30 feet wide and 30 feet long in diameter. The dirt pile, rock and sand area was as wide as the garage. The specific area of interest, the burn pile, was at the south side of the dirt pile and centered at the end. Approximately 6 feet rectangular area, gravel, dirt, and sand had been removed and scraped down to the ground level surrounding the pile. From the south side, dug into, and this was where the burn pit was located that contained the charred and complete bones. The dirt pile appeared to have been added, dumped on top to the existing landscape grass lawn.
Now, notice what he said. Basically, that somebody took probably like a skid steer with a bucket and took out a scoop that was only a couple of feet high, and that was the burn area. But notice what he said, that it was at the ground level. That's an important point, that the ash was just sitting on top of the ground level of the burn pit. In other words, the ash pile was only a couple of inches deep. It wasn't like a foot or 2 feet of ash. It's only a small amount of ash. And he said, sorry, Neverly, go.
Which is significant because if we had a roaring, whopping fire 10 feet high going on for 6 hours in order to cremate, if we believe all of this, cremate a 135-pound person in an open area pit, right?
Yeah.
We would have like a ash pile knee deep.
Yes, because they would have used a lot of fuel.
Exactly.
A high amount of fuel. So, but what caught my eye was he said contained the charred, incomplete bones. How did he know they were incomplete bones?
Yeah, I saw that.
Well,
Susan. Oh, sorry, Jack 61.
I agree.
Well, and not only that, yeah, why did they come back on the 10th and the 11th and
Yeah.
destroyed
Oh,
the
yeah.
entire thing. It was more than just an inch or two. It wasn't just sitting on there. There was shit down in there deeper that, previous where they'd burned stuff,
Correct. So there is the tire wire, which will prove actually is tire wire, but there isn't a massive amount of evidence of fuel outside the burn pit. And what did Dahan say? Dahan said that if you're going to convert a human being to bone fragments that small, you need a huge amount of time and a huge amount of fuel. Susan.
I was just going to answer Travis's question. This is Sturdivant's report.
This is Sturdivant's report. And you notice the impression that Sturdivant was trying to say. He was trying to say that this burn pit was purpose-built, because he said later on, he even says in his testimony, it was foreign to the landscape, right? So in other words, is he giving the impression that Stephen Avery built this burn site solely to cremate Teresa Horbach? That's the impression I get. Jack 61.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think there's other testimony, if I'm remembering right. I don't remember exactly who said it, but that had been like that.
It's from
before.
Brendan.
Yeah, that's right. That was from Brendan. That's the way that burn pit was.
And somebody said it looked as though they were going to build another structure there.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
like it was a pad for
Neverly.
a structure.
Yes, correct. Neverly.
I have a technical question. Dr. Silkman, you said that this is Special Agent Sturdivant's report. Why does he talk about himself in the third person?
I think
he
that's
says,
the way
Sturdivant had been told that they were burn barrels.
Yeah. I think that's the way they write it in a report when they're referring to themselves.
That's weird.
Yeah.
It is weird because they usually say I, comma, Uyghur,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes. Well, again, we don't know the motivation of Sturdivant writing this report, right? But have a look at the next paragraph. And Andy B, are you still awake, good sir?
I am.
You are. Are you able to read the last paragraph where it says Special Agent Sturdivant has been told?
Yeah, sure.
Let's go for it.
Sturdivant had been told that there were burn barrels throughout the area, and Stephen Avery had allegedly burned animal carcasses before. Therefore, the discovery of suspected bone material did not seem that unnatural or unusual at the time. However, Sturdivant felt it was important to collect the material and have it analysed by the crime lab. The site could be revisited if it contained human remains. The site was not excavated below the soil or processed completely. The charred material was sifted rapidly due to approaching darkness.
This has got to be, I'll get you on in a sec. This has got to be the most biggest bullshit excuse I've ever read in any report. Jack 61.
Well, number one, he just said right above this, he found what he thought was skull bone. So what the fuck?
Yeah, correct.
Right?
But who's skull bone?
And then
someone else mentioned honeycombing. Not in this report,
correct.
but
correct.
Sipple, probably, because of his family history with working as butcher.
Yeah.
And the day before at Cuss Road, they had all the spotlights out. They worked after dark.
Well. They also had lights and generators back there too. We've got the photos. We've got the photos.
But they didn't use them.
No. Suddenly they had to leave it dark, cover it with a tarp, and didn't come back until the 10th. It was so not important. But he says they found suspected what he thought was skull bone. What? That makes this paragraph makes absolutely zero sense to me. None.
Now, but have a look at how strategic Sturdivant was. He just gave a legitimate reason why, 1, no coroner was called. 2, no forensic anthropologist was called. 3, why no photographs were taken, and 4, why they all pissed off when darkness hit. He just said, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were sifting. However, if it turned out to be human, we could come back and revisit the crime scene all over again.
Unbelievable.
Have you ever seen an arson investigator write such bullshit?
No way.
And the crime lab, they were sitting at the burn pit for an hour and a half before the crime lab show up. I've never seen anything like, and to make matters worse, I forgot one important point. Look what Sturdivant puts in that last statement. I was told that Stephen Avery burnt animal carcasses. So look at what Sturdivant did. Hey, look, come on. There could have been chicken bones. There could have been deer bones, right? Don't blame us for being sloppy. We'll let the crime lab do the analysis, and if it turned out to be human, we'll come back there the next day and we'll process the burn pit better. Jack 61.
For fuck's sake. Oh,
Jack 61.
Well, I mean, there's so many problems. I mean, for me personally, again, looking at it just as a person, reasonable. You found what suspected human skull bones. Number one, they called the coroner. That's state law. He knows that, and they didn't do it. As far as I know. Now, I'm just basing this on what I know. If there's some other report that I'm unaware of, I'm glad to take a look at it. But it doesn't happen. They basically work till dark and call it a day, and they don't come back till November 10th. I found that
correct.
I found that really
Jack
strange.
61, you said a very important thing. No processing was done one day after.
Right.
No processing was done one day after, which is incredible, right? Now, let's try. Oh, sorry, Susan.
What did they report on the news on the 8th that they found bones? Or on the 9th?
You know, I don't remember. I'd have to look at.
They arrested Stephen on the 9th, right?
On the 9th,
Yeah,
correct.
That was the
correct.
gun charge. That was the gun charge, though.
Well,
correct.
yeah.
But Pager was giving hints about stuff being found on the property, and it could have been the 9th or the 10th. I have to double check that, but that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
It is. I don't remember when, and maybe it's on N64's channel that we can find out when it was actually reported. It is a great point.
When bones were first found, because what did Skolinski tell Brendan on the 10th? That his uncle had burnt Teresa Hallpark, that they found bones and teeth. Right? So the cat was out of the bag on November the 10th. So it could have been shown in the news as early as the 9th, NDB.
Yes, Doc. In the second paragraph of that report, the first sentence, we were talking about the red flag.
Yes.
He states that Jason Jost had marked the bone with a red flag.
The red flag, correct.
Didn't Jost say that the bone was already marked with a red flag?
Correct. By a state trooper. So we don't know. We don't know what the truth is.
It's also very interesting that he's including Mignon in here, and in her detailed report, it says nothing about red flags, nothing about bones.
Nope.
Correct. So
nothing about odor.
No, nothing about smell either. Right. So
nobody mentioned anything about foul odor. You guys noticed that years into reading documents and stuff. Nobody said that.
Correct.
I don't want to say this because I've harped on this for, we're moving in close to 8 years now. And I bitched and griped about it. Do your, I'm just saying, everybody out there, do your own research. Don't just believe by me. I've looked, and I'm just telling you everything that I found, everything. Where there's a burnt body in a pit or anything like this, the odor is strong and it's putrid and it's terrible. And almost in virtually every one of the things that I've seen, somebody says something.
Correct. But what we've done here, Jack 61, as everyone knows, we've looked at multiple sources. We've not looked at just one report, right? We've looked at many, many reports, listened to many, many phone calls, and come to these conclusions, right? But let's continue with the next page, right? Because it gets even more interesting, right? So this is page K, slide K4. Susan, do you see the top paragraph?
Yes, Doc.
Yeah. Can you read that one out, please?
Sturdivant requested the assistance of Madison Crime Lab personnel who were busy processing and collecting evidence elsewhere from burn barrels. John Ertl, Chuck Cates, and Wan Zheng eventually arrived at the site and set up a sifting apparatus. Sturdivant and Deputy Jost assisted with the sifting, examination, and selection of suspected bone material and suspected teeth that were placed into a crime lab box. Additionally, pieces of a zipper and metal grommets were placed into the box. The box of suspected bone and teeth were taken by the crime lab, not by the coroner, as Travis was saying earlier. The sifting took place over a 6x8 brown tarp. The crime lab personnel used a shovel and hand tools from their vehicle to gather the contents of the burn pit. No photos were taken at the site during the sifting. A hoe and a sand rake from the adjacent residence were used to scrape the ground surface.
Now, remember what Earl said, right? He didn't take any photographs because the crime scene had been obviously altered. And the question I asked was, wait a minute, you guys were the first people to come up at the crime scene. How can it be possibly altered? And I think Neville made the comment that maybe Ertl had seen the crime scene before, had seen the burn pit before, because he was there on November the 5th. And what he saw now did not resemble what he saw before. And if you notice, no photographs were taken, and Sturdivant was prepared to take the heat for that. But notice he said that a hoe and a sand rake from the adjacent residence were used to scrape the ground surface. They are altering the crime scene, guys. Susan.
And didn't document it. And there's photographers all over the freaking property. Come on.
Correct. Now, Zhang is the photographer for the crime lab. Yep. And he obviously would have had a camera, being the photographer. He never took any photographs. Susan.
I'd like to know what went on in that hour and a half between the time that they saw the bones and the crime lab appeared with the sifting equipment. What did they do for an hour and a half?
Correct. And Sturdivant was asked the question, did you touch the burn pit in that time? And he goes, no, absolutely
he says
not.
no. So what the hell were they doing?
I got no idea. They didn't call Deborah Kakach, put it that way. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Fassbender and Wiegert ever called to the burn pit?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Was Sheriff Hagel called to the burn pit?
I don't think so.
I know.
All right, but
so
what
who was
were they
directing
doing?
all of this?
Yeah, themselves. But why were they at the Manitowoc County gravel pit? Yeah, or were they in Mickle's Quarry, according to your risk? What were they doing there?
Yeah, I don't know. We're clearly missing pieces of what people were doing. It is
All
interesting,
right.
though. I never really thought about that, Doc. Fassbender and Uyghur are the lead investigators, and they're not called over there. I will have to look and
And my,
try to find out what they
That,
were actually doing.
okay, now
that
my
is
Well,
final.
they were
crazy.
busy doing something very, very important because they knew there was nothing going on the salvage yard.
Possibly, yes, yes.
Looking
But,
at hindsight is 2020.
but here's my question. Why didn't they bring a scent and a cadaver dog on November the 9th to check the surrounds of the burn pit?
Great
Anybody got an
question,
answer?
Doc. Great
Anybody?
question.
Now, Bear's gone. Bear's gone. Why didn't the investigators call in a cadaver dog
Yeah,
and a
that's a good
scent
question.
dog when part of Teresa Horba could have been buried underground? Serious question.
And if they were animal remains, the dogs wouldn't have hit
They wouldn't
on
have
the
hit.
pit.
They wouldn't have hit. Anybody got any answer?
Why didn't
In
they
actual
bring one
fact,
on the 8th?
yep,
Yeah,
correct,
I can't answer that, Doc, but they should have.
correct. Now, what did Loof do? He's a scent dog. Remember, Loof was bought on November the 7th. A scent dog. Now, Loof went to the van, smelt around the van, and I think Loof went up to the south trailer door, bypassed the burn barrel, bypassed the burn pit, and went straight to Cuss Road.
Yeah, and the cadaver dogs, they hit over there on the berm.
And the cadaver dogs went on the berm and showed hyperactivity on the berm, not at the burn pit. Because remember what Mignon said in her report? We had to stop the pumping of the septic tanks to let the dogs go through.
Yeah.
Um,
And didn't also a scent dog hit on the berm as well?
yes, a scent
Yeah.
dog and a cadaver dog had hyperactivity on the berms, which we'll talk about in a second, right? Now, that tarp is item number 7923. That's very, very important. Now, let me ask this question before we close the podcast down soon. Did Sturdivant mention the finding of desiccated muscle tissue and that long leg bone known as item BZ once?
No.
No?
You mean Karen's daughter's tibia?
Tibia bone? Yeah. Did Sturdivant mention large muscle desiccated tissue that
No.
they sifted at the burn pit?
No.
No?
No, and just looking at his experience, I think he would have noticed that, Doc.
So
supposedly they threw it in the tarp.
So let me get this straight, right? They used sifting equipment. They got shovels and they got the ash and they sifted it. Both, and I'll show you, and Duke talked about it in his Reddit post, both the bone fragment and the desiccated muscle tissue are too big to go through the sifter. They're too large. In fact, that bone is probably the largest bone fragment that they had. They never discovered it on November the 8th. Now, no one says, I picked up a large bone and I threw it in the tarp. Oh, by the way, I found a large muscle tissue and I threw it in the tarp. I didn't put it in the collection box. Is anyone suspicious here, guys?
Very. And I think anybody would have recognized it because it was squishy. It was described as squishy.
Yep, correct. Susan?
Yeah, extremely suspicious.
Okay. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's finish this. Neverly, do you see the next paragraph where it says also noticed?
Also noticed.
In the debris. Do you see that part?
Yes.
K4. Now,
Yes.
have a note what Sturdivant says they saw at the burn pit. Let's go for it.
Also noticed in the debris was a blade from a hacksaw. Seatbelt. Yeah. Robert Durst says hi.
Robert Durst says hi.
Yeah. Seatbelt fastener, the metal strands from steel belted tires, a plastic jug containing an unknown substance, minuscule amount, and other unidentified items. In addition, within the site was a shovel, hammer, screwdriver, tire, and the frame of a burned vehicle seat. The debris that was sifted, okay.
Yeah, no, keep going.
The debris that was sifted was collected in the tarp. The tarp and contents was double bagged and placed in the storage trailer by Special Agent Sturdivant, Special Agent Strauss, and Detective Rick Reimer. It was recommended that the site be photographed and re-examined the following day during the daylight hours. Oh my God.
Little late.
You can't make this up. You cannot make this up.
Where the
My God.
Well,
flashlight?
I got one. Yeah, I got one more thing to say here. I thought Strauss wasn't involved. I thought Strauss wasn't involved. What the fuck?
She clearly was. Keep
just
going,
to go
Emily.
back a little bit on that item BZ, I'm
BZ,
gonna say BZ because you call it BZ. Because it was squishy, that means that it wasn't charred. If it was completely charred, it would have been like a rock, like a piece of coal. That means that there was right. So there was plenty of evidentiary findings in there if they cared to take care of it properly, right?
Correct. And he's an arson investigator. Sturdivant is an arson investigator. He knows burnt muscle flesh.
That would have been like a VIP item.
And what did Erdl say? I got asked questions. Is it a bone? And he says, if it's a bone, put it in the box. And are you trying to tell me that somehow they got the largest tibia bone fragment and large fragments of muscle tissue in front of an arson investigator and they threw it on the tarp instead of in the box? Come on, guys, are we deluding ourselves or what? Jack 61.
I just don't think it happened that way.
It's crazy.
It is.
It's crazy. Right? And notice what he said. This makes no sense. They're collecting all this material, bone fragments. There obviously is muscle tissue. And he goes, it was recommended that the site be photographed and re-examined the following day during daylight hours when they fucking had Cuss Road flood lit. Now wait for it. For a peat moss bag and a rotting wooden pallet.
Yeah.
And a helicopter flying above them all day that took, 300 pictures?
They also started here at 1:30 in the afternoon in broad daylight.
In broad daylight, right?
This would have been one of the situations like get the floodlights out, stat.
Immediately. And as Jack 61 pointed out, we're going to show you an image later on of 2 floodlights at the burn pit when the burn pit was already processed. Oh, God, no.
Plus, it was recommended to do this the following day. They didn't even go back there the following day.
They did not reprocess the burn pit the following day. Correct. So Sturdivant, I think, must have been in Alice in Wonderland because what he wrote in his report would have got any other investigator fired immediately for stupidity and incompetence.
And lying? How about lying?
And lying. Yeah.
And lying. So let's think about this. I'm going to sift this burn pit, but I'm not going to take a photograph. I'm going to sift this burn pit where I'm finding bone fragments and skull bone fragments. And by the way, we are looking for a missing person who was seen in the company of Stephen Avery, and the burn pit just happens to be 20 feet from his back door. But we're not going to photograph it. What we're going to do is we're going to come back tomorrow and re-examine it in the daylight, Susan.
Take pictures.
Yeah.
And take
Hey,
pictures.
Jack. Hey,
And they
Jack, can
found
you
a
pull up the
supposedly
ahead.
found a vertebrae bone.
Correct. Jack 61.
It's-
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Susan.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Well, this is a really big line here. After they've already done all this work, why would you photograph it after the fact? After you've removed all this material? It's worthless.
To me, Jack 61, it's like saying, I'm going to close the doors to the barn. Oh, but I'm sorry, but the horse has already run away.
That's right. It's too
Yeah.
late.
It's too late. It's too late.
And
sorry, Neverly.
And do we have a report from this blade from the hacksaw? Do we have a
No.
report from what they
No.
found on the shovel, hammer, screwdriver, tire, and the
No.
frame of a? Of course not. But poor Brendan was convicted on using
Mutilation.
those, right? For
Mutilating
mutilation.
the corpse. Correct. I don't even think they even picked up the hacksaw blade and analyzed it, because wouldn't you want to check for human flesh, for DNA?
Yes, exactly.
Nothing. You know why? Because there was nothing on them. That's why.
Exactly.
That is exactly why. All right. So, Neverly, would you like to just finish the last sentence, please?
Sure. The search of the burn was completed at approximately 5 p.m. Special Agent Sturdivant made a sketch of the area showing the location of the dirt pile and burn area on the property in relation to Stephen Avery's home and garage. The sketch will be attached to this report as a related object file and forwarded to DCIR.
Now, has anyone ever seen that sketch?
I don't
I
recall
No.
it.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it, and I don't think it's an exhibit either.
Yep, I've never seen it. So, guys,
So it
all
sounds
jokes,
good, but it never happened.
Yeah. So, all jokes aside, this is truly remarkable. Ken Kratz in court said that Cuss Road was nothing, a non-event. Ken Kratz said that the Manitowoc County gravel pit is irrelevant. I'm spending 20 seconds. These guys, Jost discovers the eureka moment in the entire investigation, the human cremains of Teresa Horbach. There's no photos, there's no videos, and these guys bugger off at 5 o'clock because the sun went down. Now, what Sturdivant wrote made no sense at all. He goes, oh, and you should see his testimony. He goes, oh, we didn't know whether Teresa was alive or dead. Now, he was, I think Strang said, if you found bone fragments like that, including skull bone fragments, would that be indicative that the person was dead? And he goes, yes. But you see, because they didn't do any crime lab testing, they didn't know it was Teresa. And he said, if it was Teresa, we would have gone back and we would have further processed the burn pit. Now, wait a minute. Don't you think there are normal standard protocols that you must follow the first moment you find skull fragments? Neverly.
I was just going to say, when you sue a hospital or a doctor or something, there's some, alleged malpractice is going on. What they do, they take the staff that was involved with this case, they put them on the stand, and they take a copy of the hospital or a surgery center policy and procedures, and they go by that. because the policy and procedures is like the Bible. What it says in there has to happen. And if you deviate from that protocol, you have actually, you can easily be found neglectful, that you didn't follow the procedure. Therefore, it's your fault, your mistake. You're in trouble. Why didn't they do that over here?
Well, what is disturbing, and we'll close the podcast here, guys. What is disturbing is that when Deborah Kakach wanted to speak in the court, in the trial, to say what happened, Norm Garn complained that she was a disgruntled employee.
Yeah.
A disgruntled employee. She was a state bloody coroner. Jack 61.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is an SOP, and that is really supposed to be their Bible, as Beverly just indicated, right? And the first thing you do when you find suspected, according to state law, at least at that time, you call the coroner. The coroner comes and makes an evaluation, and either takes over the scene or says, "Nope, it's not human. I'm out of here."
Correct. It completely is mind blowing. It really, really is. Well, look, guys, again, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. It truly, I am just completely astounded. The more that you deep dive into this case, the worse that it really, really looks. So, what we're going to do next week, we're going to continue, and we're going to start off actually looking at Mr. Kratz's book, Ken Kratz's book, because Kratz's book contains a lot of pictures, and the comments that he makes about those pictures are very, very important, right? And hopefully next week we might have Duke on the panel, because he did a couple of Reddit posts talking about the sifting process and what they found, etc., etc. And we'll be talking more about item BZ as well. So again, guys, thank you so much. I hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. You're learning new stuff all the time, and I think we're getting really into the heart of the matter of how crazy the state's case actually was. Well, look, guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to our channel, put your DNA on the thumbs up button, and share. But don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our presentations and podcasts. But what I like to do is go round our panel, tell us how you're doing and what you thought of the podcast and the shenanigans so far. Jack 61. How are you coming along?
Well, first of all, I want to say, holy shit. This perspective, again, I've read all these reports, but then, this is what I was talking about earlier, the detail. You have to really, you have to read what they wrote in relation to other events that we know happened. And it gets so complicated, and because there's so much involved in this case and so many people. So anyway, I truly appreciate all the work you and Neverly and even Duke is contributed
Right.
in this, and really narrowing down as much as we can what happened in real time. I'm doing good. It's been again another busy week. Got some things going. Hopefully that is going to pan out. We'll see here maybe next week. For tomorrow's open mic, we're going to have part 3. Travis is going to come back. Travis and Cal.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep. Answer some more questions. Talk about the post-conviction material and the process some more. So hopefully we had a really great discussion last week. It was fantastic. Answered a lot
Sure
of questions.
was.
Yeah, it was. Being able to drive this down to what the court looks at, what the judges look at, is really important. So we know, and we're not surprised. I think that's really important. So I want to thank everybody on the panel and certainly everybody in the live chat. Really appreciate everybody coming along. All the great conversation and good. Yep, excellent. So hopefully everybody can come tomorrow for the open mic. And that's all I got.
Fantastic. Thank you so much there, Jack61. And I noticed that you're back into your home renovations there.
I had to, Doc. We were talking about the burn pit so much. I had to get away from Cuss Road for a minute and come back to the backyard here.
Yeah, which is it's just so funny, because if you are a true forensic anthropologist and you're meant to be analyzing the final death place of Teresa Halbach, if that's indeed where it took place, and you see a skid steer scooping up dirt like that, you'll be horrified.
How disrespectful is
Horrified.
that? It's so disrespectful.
Yep, completely. They're meant to be looking at a potential gravesite with fine brushes and a grid, not with skid steers, right? But we'll talk about that coming up in an upcoming podcast. I assure you. Thank you so much, Jack61. Now we have that cheeky lad, Andy B. Andy B, what did you think of the podcast, sir?
It was another great podcast, Doc. Really enjoyed it. Lots of interesting insights into the shadiness of the police investigation. And I look forward to the open mic tomorrow night, and also the upcoming Convicting the Murderer series. And
Yes.
hopefully we can do a rebuttal ridiculing convicting a murderer. So all good here. Thank you very much.
All jokes aside, there'll be thousands of people with a pad and a pen. Anything that Candace or anybody says that's bullshit, they're gone. They're toast. They're toast.
Yeah, they're going to get called out. I can tell you that right now. And we will be doing a rebuttal.
Yep.
They edited my testimony.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah, but the judge, it's a pity that they didn't say that the judge didn't agree, right?
True. I'm looking forward to that. Good stuff.
Correct. Thanks, Andy B. Next we have I don't recall.
Thank you very much for another interesting podcast and more revelations every week, it seems. And I appreciate all the hard work you put into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't recall. And next we have Susan. Susan, how things?
Things are great, Doc. Fantastic podcast. I really enjoyed that. I'm excited. I'm getting ready to go on vacation on Thursday. I'm going for a 10-day camp out at a music festival. And so
You're not going to Wisconsin? You're not going to Wisconsin?
No, not Wisconsin. It's hot Kansas. But it's always fun. So looking forward to that. Yeah. So thank you so much, Doc. It really was a great podcast.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Susan. And enjoy the music festival, but not
I'll be
too
listening
much.
from my tent next week.
Not too much, Susan. Thank you. And next we have Neverly. Neverly, how are you coming along?
Hi, bots. I'm doing well. Thank you. I wish I could go with Susan. That sounds like so much fun. Camping and a music festival, 10 days. Oh my gosh. Sounds really cool. It's good for the soul. Good for you, Susan. Yeah, nothing like that going on in my life. Pretty much work and foul play. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Silkman, for putting this comprehensive presentation that's been lasting for what, like 8 months now?
It's been a big one.
It's been a big one, yes. And thank God that we have you over here and that you're retired
and that I'm not addicted.
You're not you can walk away anytime you want. Remember
at any time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Awesome.
no, this is awesome.
No, fantastic. And also thank you so much, Neverly, and also Duke and everybody on the panel for their input. And also the guys in chat. You asked some fantastic questions, some tough questions. And look, we're learning too. If mistakes are made, we'll try and correct them on the spot, right? We're not perfect. We could only present what we have been given, and people do make mistakes in reports. That's why it's crucial that you corroborate. If one person says one thing, what did the other person say? Is there video proof? Is there photographic proof? Etc., etc. But yeah, and don't forget, in the oncoming episodes, we're going to have a deep dive in what the dogs did, their tracks, where they went, and things like that. We've got a lot to cover. And with Duke's excellent Reddit posts talking about the sifting process and item BZ, and don't worry, we'll bring all that together in the oncoming episodes. But next week, we're going to look at Ken Kratz and his book and the pictures that he used and why they were so strategic. All right. Again, guys, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And again, happy Father's Day to all the dads, I think, in the Southern Hemisphere. I know in Australia today's Father's Day. And so, yeah, fantastic. Again, guys, thank you so much. Please subscribe, like, share, and we'll catch you all next week. Take care, guys.
And this has been a Foul Play production.